The night was as thick as ink, swallowing up everything outside the window. In the train carriage, the air was as stuffy as a steamer, mixed with the stench of passengers' sweat and the sour smell of cheap instant noodles. Li Xiu held the phone tightly and stared at the last message from Zhang Xian on the screen. "Brother, don't come. There are ghosts in the caves in this mountainous area. The souls of those who died in the mining accident 100 years ago have not dispersed and turned into whispering monsters that specialize in swallowing souls. Run away when you hear the sound." The message was sent 3 days ago, and Zhang Xian's phone was turned off forever. Li Xiu's heart felt like it was being pulled by an iron hook. He was a photographer and was used to chasing the truth under the light and shadow, but this time he risked his life for his brother. The night train in the remote mountainous area was swaying towards the legendary Forbidden Land. He thought it was just superstition, but now he felt uneasy. The carriage was bustling with people. A fat woman complained loudly that the seat was too narrow. The young office worker next to her lowered her head to check her mobile phone and occasionally snickered. Children's cries and old people's coughs mingled together. Li Xiu rubbed his temples and tried to close his eyes and take a nap. His phone suddenly vibrated, there was no signal. Outside the window, the shadows of the trees passed by like ghost claws, and the train made a low roar, like the panting of a wild animal. Suddenly, a thin whisper leaked out from all directions in the carriage. At first it was like the sound of wind, so soft that it was almost inaudible. "Come on, the eternally closed door." Li Xiu opened his eyes suddenly, thinking it was an auditory hallucination. But the expressions of the passengers around him changed. The fat woman froze with her chopsticks, and the soup dripped onto her knees, leaving red marks, but she didn't notice it, and her eyes were as wide as bells. "Did you hear that?" she asked tremblingly, her voice shaking like an autumn leaf. The whisper repeated and became clear, like bugs crawling out of the cracks in the wall, burrowing into the ears and wrapping around the brain in a sticky way. "Come on, the forever closed door, forever closed, forever closed." The office worker's mobile phone slipped from his fingers and hit the ground. He held his head and screamed, "What? Who is talking?" The children cried loudly, and the old man murmured, the dead souls from the mine are coming." Li Xiu's heartbeat was like a war drum. He stood up, rushed to the car door, and pressed the door button. The red light flashed and the door didn't move. Outside are the dark tunnel walls, and a train is passing by at high speed. "Damn it!" He kicked the door hard, and the door panel made a muffled sound like an iron coffin lid. "Hey! Driver! Open the door!" He shouted, but only received a whisper of echo, denser and hungrier. "Come, join us, the eternally closed door will be opened for you." The passengers were furious. The fat woman threw herself at the car door. Her plump body hit the door frame, causing a buzzing sound. Nosebleeds dripped down her chin. She was hysterical. "Let me out. The monster is going to eat us." The office worker followed, bumping his shoulders, and his face was twisted into a ghost shape. "I heard it, it's coming. Call my name. Damn it, why is the door locked?" The child was hugged tightly by the mother and screamed harshly. The old man knelt down and kowtowed, saying, "Spare your life, spare your life. In the mining accident 100 years ago, we dug too deep and dug out things we shouldn't have." The lights in the carriage began to flicker, the orange light flickering on and off like a dying heart. Shadows stretched across the wall, twisting into claws. Li Xiu pulled out his cell phone and dialed the emergency number, but there was no signal. When he tried to send a message, the screen went black, and only a whisper leaked from the speaker. "Li Xiu, come, your friends are waiting for you." A shiver ran down his spine. How could this voice know his name? Zhang Xian's message came to mind, dark entity, whispering and swallowing souls. This train line is adjacent to the Forbidden Cave, the site of an ancient curse, a legendary entity that used hallucinations as bait to lure people into the abyss of eternal darkness. Is it true? Despair came like a tide. The passengers went crazy. The fat woman grabbed Li Xiu's collar, her eyes were bloodshot. What are you doing? Break the door quickly. They are coming, I see the shadow moving. Her nails dug into his arm, causing bloody marks. The office worker pushed her away and pounded the door with his fists like raindrops. Fuck. Why won't the door open? We're going to die here. The child's cries turned into sobs, and the mother hugged him and huddled in the corner, muttering, "Don't be afraid, baby, mommy is here, mommy is here." But her pupils expanded, a weird smile appeared on her face, and a whisper escaped from her mouth, "Come on, close it forever." Li Xiu shook off the fat woman, his mind buzzing. He couldn't panic, Zhang Xian was still waiting for him. He took a deep breath of the stuffy air and smelled the stench of rust and rot seeping from the cracks in the floor. "Calm down," he yelled, his voice echoing in the flickering lights. The passengers were stunned and turned to stare at him. The fat woman gasped and wiped away the nosebleed. "You, what's your name? Why aren't you afraid?" The office worker stopped his fists and his shoulders trembled. "Boy, can't you hear it? That voice is in my head." Li Xiu ignored them, rushed to the emergency hammer, smashed the glass cabinet, and took out the camera tripod behind him. He carried it with him to take pictures of night scenes. He used the iron frame to pry open the cracks in the door, his muscles tensed, and sweat dripped down his forehead, dripping into his eyes and stinging. The door is locked inside, electronic lock. He gritted his teeth, his voice as firm as rock. The eyes of the passengers around him widened, and the fat woman took a step back and murmured, he is still moving, his hands are not shaking, why didn't the monster call him?" The office worker swallowed, and his voice trembled, "Are you crazy? We are all about to die," and he even broke the door. The whispers became louder, like a chorus of thousands of dead souls, and black water oozed from the walls of the carriage, with a fishy stench, like corpse juice. The lights went out for 2 seconds, and when they came back on, the shadows of the passengers were stretched and twisted into tentacle shapes. The old man suddenly threw himself at the window and hit his head on the glass. His forehead was bloody and bloody. "Get out! Get out!" The glass shattered, but only the hard tunnel wall was exposed. The cold wind poured in, mixed with the musty smell of soil. The train shook violently, as if it was being shaken by a giant beast. Li Xiu's iron frame was stuck in the crack of the door, and the crack was pried out. Cold wind poured in, bringing with it the dampness and death atmosphere deep underground. "Hang on," he yelled, veins popping out of his arms. The fat woman stared at him, her teeth chattering. There is no fear in your eyes, why? They are targeting you, and I heard it calling your name." The office worker came closer, and his voice was as trembling as chaff. "Boy, who are you? Why are you so steady? We are all dead, and you are still working." Suddenly, the car body shook violently. The floor made a cracking sound, and a black crack exploded from under Li Xiu's feet, as hideous as a giant mouth. The passengers screamed, and the fat woman's feet slipped and fell into the crack. Her hands were empty, leaving only a scream, "Help!" The office worker stepped back and bumped into the child's mother. Her face was covered with blood, and she whispered with a smile, "Stop forever. Come on." The old man collapsed and his eyes turned white. Li Xiu's feet were in the air, and gravity pulled him down like a plumb bob. The wind howled in my ears, and darkness swallowed everything. He could have grabbed hold of the iron frame, but it broke and the pieces fell with a clang. As he fell, he smelled the strong smell of earth and rotten meat, and the whisper in his ear became friendly, "Li Xiu, come to me." The train roared above, the cracks closed, and the lights went out forever. He fell to the soft mud ground, his bones cracked, and the pain was heartbreaking. Cave. There was absolute darkness all around, with only the echo of water drops and low breathing. The air was as cold as a tomb, and the walls were covered with slimy moss that was cold to the touch. He climbed up and took out the flashlight on his mobile phone. The weak beam illuminated a huge space, the rock wall was covered with claw marks, and the abyss-like passage stretched endlessly. In the distance, footsteps are heard in the wind. No, it was a whisper, with a change of tone, so familiar that it made his heart stop. That was Zhang Xian's voice, floating from the depths of the cave, gentle and hungry. "Xiu, I'm here, come, the eternally closed door is open for you." The rock wall is close at hand, but it pulses slightly like a heart. The surface is covered with gray-white mucous membranes, which bulge and rise slightly with the rhythm of whispers, as if there is something invisible struggling inside. The beam swept across, leaving claw marks on the wall, and fresh blood was still dripping, forming a thin stream and winding down the groove. Li Xiu's heart was beating wildly. He forced himself to get up. His knees sank into the mud. The broken tripod fragments were scattered aside. The sharp metal edges reflected the flashlight light, like bone spurs on a severed limb. "Zhang Xian," he murmured, his voice echoing in the cave, becoming hollow and distant. The gentle whispers started again, oozing out from all directions. "Xiu, here, come, I've been waiting for a long time." Li Xiu's consciousness pieced back together like broken glass. His chest felt like it had been hit by a hammer. Every breath affected his broken ribs, and burning pain rushed to his forehead. He lay in the soft mud, surrounded by a biting cold. The air was as wet and heavy as a sponge soaked in corpse water, which made his lungs feel stuffy. The water drops slowly fell from the ceiling of the cave and hit his forehead with a slap. The coldness penetrated his skin, carrying a musty earthy smell and a faint rusty smell. The darkness squirmed like a living thing, and he instinctively fumbled for his phone. His thumb trembled and he turned on the flashlight. A weak beam of light pierced the absolute darkness, illuminating the horror around him. On the ground ahead, a mass of metal debris came into view. He rushed over, knelt down and picked it up. It was Zhang Xian's camera. The lens was shattered, the body was twisted as if it had been twisted by a huge force, and there was an SD card stuck on the back of the lens. With trembling fingers, he pulled out the card and stuffed it into his phone. The screen lit up with the last few bars of battery, showing a series of photos. The heart is like falling into an ice cave. The first picture is of a train carriage, the faces of the passengers are twisted, and the eyes are as hollow as dead fish. The second picture, the cracks in the floor are open, and the fat woman's hand stretches out from it, the nails are broken, and the flesh and blood are blurred. The third picture. Zhang Xian's selfie, a weird smile appears on his face, the background is the cave, the wall is pulsating, a blurry figure is attached to his shoulder, the head is tilted, and the lips are squirming and whispering. The figure's eyes were pure black with no pupils, as if looking straight into the camera, staring into Li Xiu's soul. He gritted his teeth and pushed himself up, holding his chest with his left hand to relieve pain, and holding the mobile phone in his right hand as he moved forward. His footsteps clicked on the gravel, and every step splashed mud onto his calves, which was as sticky as blood. The flashlight wavered, casting distorted shadows, and the walls pulsed faster, shrinking hungrily as if they sensed prey. The whispers became thicker, penetrated into the ear canals, and pierced the brain like countless fine needles. "Forever closed, the door is closed, but the door here is open for you." Li Xiu shook his head to shake off the illusion, veins popped up on his forehead, and sweat mixed with muddy water slipped into his eyes, stinging and blurring his vision. "No. This is not you." Li Xiu choked with sobs and almost dropped his phone. The whisper burst into laughter and turned into Zhang Xian's voice, so intimate that it made people sick. "Xiu, did you see it? The things they dug up are beautiful, aren't they? Come to me and let us close together forever." Hallucinations emerged. In the darkness ahead, Zhang Xian's figure slowly emerged, wearing familiar mountaineering clothes, waving and smiling. His face was as pale as wax, but his eyes were shining with green light. "Brother, follow me, there is light here, there is truth." Li Xiu rubbed his eyes, and the figure disappeared, leaving only the pulsing mockery of the wall. He took a deep breath of the rancid air and forced his mind to clear up. He couldn't believe it, this was a trap. "Hey! Who are you? Li Xiu shouted, his voice suppressed but firm. Qiao Zhixia raised her head suddenly, her pupils shrank, staring at him as if she were seeing a ghost. She took half a step back and hit the rock wall. The pulsing mucous membrane stuck to her back. She screamed and threw it away, her voice trembling. You, how did you get down? The train, the crack, I saw you prying open the door, are you not afraid? I whispered your name, but you are not crazy. His eyes widened as he glanced at the remains of the camera and the flashlight of his mobile phone, breathing rapidly. It's impossible, everyone is going crazy. The fat woman was still laughing when she fell, the office workers hit their heads against the wall, and the mother whispered to coax her children. How can you stay steady? There is no shadow in your eyes. Li Xiu didn't have time to explain, so he came closer and pulled her up. I'm Li Xiu, photographer. Zhang Xian is my brother, he disappeared in this cave. What about you? How did you fall? Qiao Zhixia struggled to stand up, her legs were so weak that she relied on him to support her. She smelled the smell of mud and sweat on his body, mixed with blood, and her face turned pale. Qiao Zhixia, reporter. I got on the train to investigate old news about the mining disaster. The whisper, it first called me, Zhixia, come to report the truth. I thought I heard hallucinations, and then the car door closed forever, and the crack opened. I saw black shadows moving in the driver's cabin. It wasn't a mechanical failure, it was a curse. 100 years ago, they dug through the earth's veins and released dark entities, ancient things that could control hallucinations and seep into the brain through sound. She gasped, staring at Li Xiu's face, her voice trembling, you don't believe it? Everyone collapsed when they heard the whisper, but you are trying to open the door, like you are okay. Who are you? Suddenly, there were tiny footsteps coming from the front, accompanied by gasps. Li Xiu held up the flashlight and shined it, and the beam of light captured a pale figure, a woman in her 20s, with long wet hair sticking to her face, a press card hanging on her chest, and a name tag that read, Qiao Zhixia. She huddled behind the rock, hugging her knees with her hands, her lips were purple, her eyes were red and swollen, and she murmured, forever closed. Where is the door? It calls my name. Her nails dug into her arms, drawing blood, and blood beads rolled down to the mud, exuding the smell of rust. Despair surged like a wave, Qiao Zhixia's knees softened and she almost knelt down, muttering, it's over, they are controlling, listen, it repeats your fears, your secrets. The whisper echoed, Zhixia, your manuscript has not been published, your family is waiting for you to go home. Li Xiu, your photos will never be popular, your brothers are waiting for you to be buried together. She held her head and screamed, her face twisted, get away. It knows everything, like a psychological virus, the pattern is fixed, first get intimate, call names to seduce, then expose scars to amplify fear, and finally promise to be released forever. Li Xiu pulled her up, his voice was like iron, good analysis, but don't believe it. There is only one passage ahead. He raised the flashlight and walked forward. Qiao Zhixia was stunned, staring at his back, her teeth chattering, you are not afraid. The whisper is targeting you, I heard it change its tone, and it is more hungry for you. How can you block it? Your eyes are not distracted. The passage is narrow, the walls are approaching, the pulsation is intensifying, and the air is filled with phosphorescent fungi, emitting a faint green light and clustering like tumors. Li Xiu stopped and held up his mobile phone to take pictures. The surface of the fungus was covered with eye-like protrusions, blinking and staring, the hyphae twitching like blood vessels, exuding a sweet and rotten fragrance, tempting people to get closer. He took several pictures in a row, and the flash was dazzling, illuminating the surrounding claw marks and dripping with fresh blood. Qiao Zhixia came over to look at the photo, her eyes as wide as copper bells. Oh my God, this is not a bacteria, it is alive. The eyes are tracking the camera. Are you still taking pictures? We are about to die, what are you thinking about? Are you crazy? No, you are 10 times more stable than me. This flashlight does not waver, and your hands do not shake. Are you a monster? Or, a savior? Her voice changed from fear to doubt, and she grabbed his arm tightly, but he ignored it when her nails dug into her. Li Xiu's heart sank as her intelligence matched Zhang Xian's message. He nodded and shined the flashlight on the path he came from, Xian. Get out first. He turned around and climbed up the crack. The rock wall was slippery, the mucous membranes were crawling like living maggots, and the tentacles were bone-chilling cold. Qiao Zhixia followed and grabbed the hem of his clothes, her fingers turned white with strength. Wait a minute, that crack. I tried it, and it closed, just like the physical body healed. Sure enough, under the flashlight light, only the smooth rock surface was left, pulsing faintly, as if it was breathing. Whispering and snickering, forever closed, no door, just move forward. Li Xiu put away his cell phone and used the fragmented tripod as a crowbar to smash open a clump of fungi. Green juice sprayed out, with a fishy stench like pus and blood, and the hyphae broke and convulsed. Record the truth, Zhang Xian taught me. Whisper the fear of light and evidence. He analyzed calmly. Qiao Zhixia swallowed, stepped back and stared at him. Evidence. They swallow souls for thousands of years, you little flashlight. But, there is light in your eyes, not eroded. I will follow you, okay? Otherwise, I would have collapsed. Her voice was trembling with admiration, and her cheeks were red, not fear, but shock at the unknown power. Suddenly, heart-rending screams broke out at the end of the passage. It's like a person being skinned alive, echoing in a cave, accompanied by a thick mist of blood hitting the face, the smell of rust and feces mixed together, and the ground as slippery as internal organs. Li Xiu thrust his flashlight forward, and the beam of light caught the broken limbs. Office worker. His face was half broken, his eyes were hollow, and he was still whispering, shut it forever, save. Qiao Zhixia retched, hugged Li Xiu, and her voice shook like a fallen leaf. That kid on the train just now. They are eating people. What should we do next? You have a plan, right? Tell me, how did you do it, so calm? Her eyes flashed with fear and dependence, staring at him, waiting for the impossible answer. Li Xiu's flashlight beam pierced the blood mist in front of him like a thin needle. The screams were layered like peeling skin, tearing his eardrums apart. Each sound was mixed with the crack of broken bones and the moist gnawing sound. The air was as thick as boiled plasma, and the stench of rust and rotting entrails assaulted your nostrils, burning your nasal passages. Li Xiu tightened Qiao Zhixia's arm. Her body was as soft as mud, clinging to his back, and her breath was hot and rapid on the side of his neck. Li Xiu, that cry, is not a human being, but something chewing on the soul. Don't go, turn around, they are waiting. Her nails dug into his flesh, drawing bloody marks, her voice trembled like a candle in the wind, her eyes were full of tears of despair, reflecting the dim light of the flashlight. As they advanced, the passage widened, the ground was covered with broken bones, and the air became thick and bloody. The whispers were as dense as a swarm of insects. Come on, there is light at the end, your brother. The hallucination reappeared. Zhang Xian's figure flashed in front, stretched out his hand, and his skin peeled off to expose his bones. Qiao Zhixia screamed, I saw it. It's leading the way. Li Xiu pulled her around and ignored the phantom, it's fake. Listen to the pattern, it always promises an end. Whispering laughter, the walls pulsating like a closing maw, the breathing of the dark entity is closer, and the smell of blood is too strong to be dissolved. The end of the passage suddenly opened up, a chamber surrounded by stalactites, and phosphorescent bacteria crawled all over the dome like tumors. The blinking eye-like protrusions all turned towards them, and the green light swayed like a will-o'-the-wisp. In the center, a squirming black figure, Passenger Chen, who looked like an office worker. His suit was torn into strips, hanging in the air, entangled by several dark tentacles that burst out from the cracks in the wall. The tentacles were as thick as a child's arms, and the surface was covered with suckers and barbs. The veins were bulging like blood vessels. It made a grunting sound when sucking, and every time it sucked away a trace of Chen's breath. His face was twisted into a wax figure, with black threads like insect slue appearing under his skin, his eyes turned white, his lips wriggled, and he whispered intermittently, "It is whispering about my sins, cheating, corruption, eternal closure, relief." The tentacles retracted sharply and pierced into his chest. The flesh and blood exploded like a rotten watermelon, red and black internal organs splattered all over the walls, the smelly mist filled the air, and the ground instantly turned into a pool of blood. "If you don't go, you will die faster." Li Xiu's voice was as low as a hammer striking stone. The pain in his broken ribs made cold sweat drip from his forehead, but he kept walking and stepped over the office worker's broken body. The soles of his shoes crushed the soft eye sockets, and sticky blood spattered and slid down his calves, as warm as crawling insects. Qiao Zhixia retched, covered her mouth and followed, staring at his back, muttering, "Crazy, you hear that laugh, whispering, mocking us, like a pack of wolves hunting. How can you walk steadily? Your heart is not beating. Or, have you been used to this ghost place?" Her tone turned from fear to suspicion, her pupils dilated, staring at his unshakable mobile phone, like seeing a monster that shouldn't live. Li Xiu ignored the pain and knelt down on one knee. He held the flashlight of his mobile phone against his forehead as steady as a rock. The flashes of light exploded and clicked to record the whole process of the tentacles devouring him. The beam swept across, and phantom faces appeared on the surface of the tentacles. Chen's wife and children twisted and screamed, the inner wall of the suction cup squirmed like 1,000 small mouths, swallowing the last bit of spiritual light. Chen's body limp, the tentacles retracted into the cracks in the wall, leaving a pulsating crack, and the blood gurgled like a heart spurting. "Evidence," he said coldly, put away his mobile phone, broke the tripod and crowbar and smashed it at the corpse, and took out the items from his trouser pocket, a box of matches, half wet, a crumpled map fragment with mottled ink, and the words, "Old Mine Map, Restricted Area, Wraith Vein, Dig Through and Release." Qiao Zhixia's scream suddenly stopped. She raised her head, eyes as wide as copper bells, staring at Li Xiu's mobile phone. Her face turned from pale to livid, and her lips trembled. You took the picture. That thing is swallowing the soul, and you are still clicking." The light blast made the wall twitch. "It is afraid of you. Damn it, are you human?" Chen Mao just melted, your hands didn't shake, your eyes didn't blur, like we're taking wedding photos. Her voice changed from collapse to shock. She climbed up and rushed towards him, grabbing his arm and shaking it hard. Her fingertips were as cold as dead bodies, but she said with fanatical admiration, "Monster. No, savior. How did you do it?" Whispering in my mind about your sin, Li Xiu, the photos will never be read, brothers will be buried together, you blocked it? Teach me. Li Xiu shook off her hand and lit a match to test it. The orange flames jumped, illuminating the map, the phosphorescent bacteria winced and blinked, and the pulse of the wall slowed down. He lowered his head and read the fragments carefully. The winding lines marked the core of the mining disaster, the gathering of resentful spirits, the source of the dark entity, and the arrow pointed directly to the deep guide's cave. The match went out, the darkness struck back, and the smell of blood became even stronger. Old mines were dug through the earth's veins 100 years ago, and the dead souls gathered into entities. The whispers are their voices, manipulating guilt to lure them down. We have fire and maps, let's move forward. He tore the map out of his pocket and tapped the crack in the wall with the crowbar to confirm that the tentacles had retreated. Qiao Zhixia screamed like glass shattering, piercing her brain. Her legs weakened and she knelt on the ground. She hit her head against the stone with a broken voice, "No. It's eating souls. Look at those tentacles, there's a face inside. Chen's face is melting and his eyes are still blinking. We are finished. It knows our sins and is waiting." Her body twitched, tears mixed with blood and mud on her face, and her nails scratched the ground with white marks. Despair swallowed her up like a tide, and only black shadows spread in her eyes. Li Xiu's heart sank, and he whispered into his mind, in the hallucination, Zhang Xian's corpse climbed up from the ground, pointing at him and laughing, "Brother, push me down the crack." Chen's residual soul floated, and the phantoms of his wife and children cried out for his life. The cracks in the wall cracked, and more tentacles burst out, rolling towards them. The sound of grunting and swallowing was deafening. Qiao Zhixia's strength was astonishing. She squeezed his waist with her legs and screamed, "Die! Sinner!" Li Xiu's broken ribs were in severe pain and his vision was blurred, but he gritted his teeth and swung the crowbar back, bang. A precise hit on the back of her head made her collapse, with clear fear flashing in her eyes. "Li! Save!" He picked her up and rushed to the side. After striking the match and throwing it, the flames exploded, the tentacles shrank, the fungus eyes burst and green juice splashed everywhere, and the stench was like burning corpses. After escaping from the chamber, a hellish chorus came from behind, the sound of all train passengers falling. Bones and flesh were torn apart, screams gathered, and the mother's coaxing whispers turned into heartbreaking words, "Baby, shut up forever." The old man hit the wall and bones shattered, and the fat woman scratched the floor with bloody hands. Whispering and laughing, "They're all here. Buried together." Li Xiu ran with Qiao Zhixia on his back. The passage was so narrow that the mucous membrane on the wall stretched out his tongue and licked his ankles, which were as cold and slippery as maggots. He gasped and threw away the wet matches, leaving only the flashlight shaking, sweat and blood mixed with mud dripping down, and every step of his broken ribs was like a knife twisting. Suddenly, whispers erupted like thunder. There was no longer petty intimacy, but a collective roar, spewing out from the four walls and the dome at the same time. Thousands of voices were superimposed into a huge wave, "Sinners! Tear each other apart! Eternal closure and liberation!" The chamber shook, and the eye-like protrusions of the phosphorescent bacteria burst into green light, and hallucinations poured out like a flood. Qiao Zhixia's eyes were distracted, she turned around and pounced on Li Xiu, grabbing his throat with her hands like claws, foaming at the mouth. "Li Xiu! You killed Zhang Xian! Your photo made him fall! Tear you apart!" Her nails pierced into the flesh of his neck, bloodshot eyes oozing out, her eyes as red as ghosts, filled with murderous intent. Li Xiu didn't answer, and he scanned the front with a flashlight. The passage bifurcated, and the arrow on the map fragment pointed to the left, tour guide's cave. The air is getting colder, and the moldy smell of earth is mixed with the smell of tobacco. Popularity. In the faint green light ahead, a rickety figure loomed, an old man, with a back as hunched as a dead tree, murmuring, "Here we come, finally." The figure disappeared in an instant, leaving only the wall pulsing faster, the darkness panting like an animal waking up. Li Xiu's heart was beating fast, and he pulled Qiao Zhixia tight. "Follow. That's a person, or a trap." Qiao Zhixia swallowed, stared at his back, her teeth chattering with enthusiasm. "If you say go, go." But, the old man's eyes are shining green, like the black shadow in Zhang Xian's selfie. "Do you still dare to chase? God?" The whispers and snickers resumed, promising truth and eternal closure. In the depths, blood mist followed, footsteps faintly heard from the end of the passage, like broken bones. Li Xiu's flashlight beam was like a soul-severing blade, cutting the blood mist in the narrow passage. The soles of his shoes crushed the remains of phosphorescent bacteria. The green juice splashed like a bursting pustule. The sticky and cold fluid slid down the ankle bone. The fishy smell penetrated the nasal cavity, like swallowing the internal organs of a rotting corpse. Qiao Zhixia clung to his back, her breathing was as chaotic as a bellows, her hands tugged at the corners of his clothes, her knuckles turned white, and she murmured, "Li Xiu, the smell of tobacco is getting stronger and stronger, like Grandpa's coffin board." The old man's figure flashed twice, his eyes were green like fungus eyes. "It was make us fall. Turn around, our legs will turn into mud, and we will die together before we die." Her voice was trembling, mixed with tears, and her face was covered with blood and mud. The light of the flashlight flickered into broken ghosts. Despair weighed down her spine like lead, and every step was dragged like a corpse. The end of the passage suddenly collapsed into a huge cave, the guide's cave. The dome is more than 10 feet high, with stalactites hanging upside down like fangs, dripping black slurry, and splashing sludge mist on the ground. The air is as rotten as a corpse pit, mixed with old tobacco, rust and blood, making the lungs burn with pain. Li Xiu stopped and scanned with a flashlight. The pulsation of the cave wall intensified, the mucous membrane was undulating like a living lung, claw marks and blood grooves were crisscrossed, and there was a faint rattle of broken bones. There is a faint fire in the center, with orange flames licking the old iron barrel, illuminating the rickety old man Chu Tian. He is as thin as firewood, his face is as wrinkled as dry bark, his eye sockets are deep set and glowing with green light, he has a cigarette in his mouth, and the ashes are falling like soul ashes. He crouched down and stirred the fire, muttering, "Here we come, finally, the soul leader is hungry and thirsty. Your sins are enough for him to chew on for a year." The figure stopped dodging and looked directly at them, his gums were black and yellow, and his smile was twisted. Qiao Zhixia Yu woke up, vomiting blood and leaned on his shoulder, her face was ashen, and her eyes were as frightened as the abyss. "Just wanted to kill you. I whispered that you were guilty, and I believed it, you knocked me out and saved my life. But, how did you wake up? It can even control me, and your eyes are as clear as water. Tell me, do you have a secret? Or are you crazy and immune?" Her voice was trembling and doubtful, and she touched his neck with hot blood. Her eyes were dilated and her breathing was rapid. "It's impossible, because of your fire. Your light. Li Xiu, you are the light itself. Otherwise, how can you hold on to the whispers?" Li Xiu ignored the pain, his ribs were broken like a knife, but his steps were as steady as a rock. He approached the fire with the crowbar across his chest, and the flashlight pierced Chu Tian's face, and the light flashed and clicked to record the details of his green eyes. Under the flames, Chu Tian's eyes shrank, and the green light flinched like a burn. He blew out smoke rings, his voice hoarse as frost. "Boy, be as calm as the host of the Soul Leader. Don't move, sit down. I, Chu Tian, have lived for 80, a survivor of the mining accident. This cave is an old mine guide station. 100 years ago, I led the workers to dig out the black crystal and release it, the Soul Leader. The curse of the ancient ley line, the dark entity that gathers wraiths, whispers and manipulates guilt, and hallucinations tear the heart. The train's passengers all fell, buried together in the mine, and you are the latest sacrifice." He took out 3 torches from the broken bag, wrapped the iron handle in oilcloth, handed over one, and lit the old miner's lamp. The kerosene lampshade was covered with cracks, and the yellow flame swayed steadily, not afraid of the pulsating wall. "Take it. Fire is its weak point. The source of the black crystal veins is in the front branch hole, and the soul melts when touched. But I said that a sacrifice is required to escape, 1 soul for 3 people. Who is willing?" Qiao Zhixia's scream stopped. She raised her head, her eyes widened as if seeing a miracle. She stared at Li Xiu's crowbar and flashlight. Her face turned from pale to livid, and her lips trembled. You approached the green-eyed ghost and slapped it in the face. The bones in your hands were crackling in the fire, but it didn't attack you. God, Li Xiu, are you the soul-eating nemesis? Whispering in my head, my family will be closed forever, waiting for you, buried together. I saw my parents burning with ashes and climbing in flames, but you sat there and listened to the story, your hands were as steady as iron. Her voice changed from collapse to enthusiasm. She climbed up and hugged Li Xiu's arm, her fingertips were cold and shook hard, her eyes were enlarged with admiration. "Monster. Savior. Chu Tian gave me the torch, you dare to take it? Teach me how to block the hallucination. Your eyes are as clear as lights, and the green light has faded away." Li Xiu took the torch, and the flames illuminated Chu Tian's wrinkled face. He ignored Qiao Zhixia's enthusiasm and nodded, form an alliance. Let's talk about the details. Chu Tian chuckled, his green eyes twinkling, and talked about the mining disaster. 100 years ago, the foreman was greedy for black crystal treasures, which exploded through the earth's veins. Black crystals burst out like blood vessels, and resentful spirits ran out of holes like black mist. The workers' guilt was magnified, stealing money, abandoning wives, killing people, biting each other and falling into the abyss, and their souls merged into entities. I hid in the fire and saw its first appearance, a faceless giant shadow, whispering affectionate names, promising liberation, but in fact it swallowed the soul and closed it forever. Now it's expanded. The train's cracked door leads to the hole, and the whole city's mineral veins are connected. The black crystal veins are in front, and they will be sacrificed if they touch them. He led the way, the miner's lamp swayed, and the three of them entered the branch cave. The flames of the torch pushed away the blood mist, the pulse of the wall slowed down, and the sticky tongue shrank and hissed. The branch hole is narrow and deep, smelling of mold and earth, and the firelight sweeps the wall. It is full of last words. There are blood stains on the fingernails, the whispers will never stop, gilt black crystal, forever close the family, the soul eater wakes up, sacrifice my brother. The handwriting is twisted like an insect crawling, the old and the new are superimposed. The last one is Zhang Xian's handwriting, Li Xiu, don't come, I will tell you your sin by whispering. Qiao Zhixia retched, her legs went limp and she leaned against Li Xiu, her pupils dilated as she stared at the last words, Zhang Xian. He carved this. Chu Tian, what are you hiding? He whispered that you are the first sacrifice, with green eyes hiding black crystals. You lead us to death. Her tone turned suspicious, her eyes were distracted, and she whispered into her brain, the phantoms of her dead family members crawled out of the writing, and her parents stretched out their dead hands to grab her throat, Xia Xia, come with us for eternal liberation. She screamed and threw herself against the wall, clawing at her last words, her fingers were bloodshot, and her eyes were as red as ghosts. Qiao Zhixia screamed and choked, her legs gave way and she knelt down. She hit her head against the stone and her voice was as broken as glass, ghost. Green-eyed grandpa. He whispered that you are the ghost of the miners, the culprit who dug through the earth's veins. Li Xiu, run, there are hand bones burning in the fire, and the crackling sounds are like laughter. Us. Her body twitched, tears gushed out, and her nails scratched the ground with bloody marks. Her eyes were fixed on the Chu Tian fire, and phantoms appeared in her eyes, her dead family members twisted and crawled out of the flames, reaching out to drag her into the fire. The tide of despair swallowed her up, and her breathing was stagnant like a drowned corpse. Chu Tian's face changed slightly, and his green eyes narrowed. Girl, suspicions arise from the dark side. I am a living witness. Li Xiu ignored it, his impulse went deep, he held the torch high, and the flashlight clicked and exploded, taking pictures of the black crystal veins. Deep inside the wall, the black crystal was like a heart. The internal organs pulsed, and traces of black mist seeped out. Gulu whispered directly into the eardrums, Li Xiu. Zhang Xian is waiting for you, blame him. The crystal veins were as thick as a child's arm, and the surface was illusory. The passenger Chen's wife and child blinked, and Zhang Xian's smile was distorted. Li Xiu approached, the phone was almost stuck to the crystal, the flash burst, the black mist shrank, and the veins trembled. Qiao Zhixia screamed and woke up from the hallucination. She stared at Li Xiu's back, her face twisted and shocked. Li Xiu. You slapped a black crystal. Whispering my family's name, you click, 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 the crystal veins twitched and fogged up. Chu Tian said it melted when touched, but when you stretched out your hand, it didn't melt. God! How can you carry it? The flames. To protect you, or are you a black crystal? Her voice was trembling with enthusiasm. She rushed to pull his clothes, her breathing was hot and her fingertips touched his wrist to steady her. Her eyes were like seeing the Savior, impossible. My parents are still holding my heart. You are as clear as a knife, cutting it open and whispering. You are the light. Qiao Zhixia fell to her knees with weak legs, stared at the tentacle with wide eyes, opened her mouth into an O, and her voice was trembling like chaff. You swiped for. The juice sprayed on your face, and you slapped it without wiping it. Chu Tian's miner's lamp shook. You can definitely defeat the tentacle. Damn it, Li Xiu, you are not a human, you are a nemesis. Chu Tian swallowed, his green eyes flashed, and murmured, boy, resist strong in nature. The road is behind the crystal, the sacrifice door. But. Suddenly, his eyes blurred, the green light surged, and he whispered and repeated the physical language, bursting out from the depths of his throat, sinners, tear each other, close for liberation. His lips writhed like tentacles, and his withered hands reached towards Li Xiu's throat, and the flames of the fire reflected his face, under the black silk skin, pulsing like an awakened animal. Qiao Zhixia screamed and backed away. Chu Tian changed. The green eyes are all open, whispers are coming from his mouth. Li Xiu, it's attached to him. The branch hole shook, the black crystal veins swelled faster, more whispers and choruses rolled in, the blood mist was as thick as a solid body, promising source and total annihilation. In the depths, footsteps approaching, like thousands of dead souls coming. Chu Tian's withered hands were like iron hooks, his bulging green eyes were locked on Li Xiu's throat, his nails were as long as claws, hissing through the air, and the whispers in his mouth burst into waves. Sinner, Li Xiu, push him down, forever closed brother. The fishy wind spurted out from deep in his throat, and the rotten smell of tobacco went straight into his nose, like swallowing rotten lungs. The wall of the branch hole pulsated and trembled wildly, the mucous membrane bulged and tongues licked the edge of the fire, the blood mist was as thick as a solid substance, and 1,000 gurgling choruses rolled out, tear each other apart, relief, the source is waiting for you. The back of the black crystal vein swelled like a heart, the tentacle stumps twitched and crawled up the wall, more black strips as thick as chopsticks burst out from the seams, and the suction cup barbs shone coldly and rolled towards the waist and legs of the three people. Chu Tian suddenly roared and flicked the miner's lamp. Boy, back off. The black crystal is hungry. Small tentacles burst out from the cracks in the crystal veins, several thick chopsticks, squirming suction cups and barbs flashed, and curled towards Li Xiu's waist. His swallowing sound was like the roar of 1,000 mouths, and the fishy wind hit his face. Li Xiu's reaction was like lightning, and the crowbar swept across, dong dong. The tentacles were cut off and spurted out black juice, which smelled as rotten as singed hair. When the torch was held forward, the flames exploded and scorched the stumps, causing them to shrivel inside the wall. He put away his stick, took the last picture, and returned, evidence. Where is the road? Li Xiu's eyes were like daggers, he ignored the black claws in front of his throat, and swiped the crowbar behind his back. Bang! Chu Tian's withered arm was broken, black juice squirted out, and the rotten smell was like burning hair. He retreated with a groan, his green eyes shrank in fear of light, his mouth squirmed and got stuck, and his whispers stopped abruptly. A torch was held in front of him, and the flames scorched the black threads on his arms, and he shrank like a hot insect. Li Xiu took advantage of the situation and approached, flashing the flashlight on Chu Tian's face, recording the details of the green light, and the cell phone screen reflected the photo, black crystal fragments pulsating deep in the pupils. Beside the fire, burn out the possessed body. He shouted, stepping firmly to crush the remains of the tentacles. Green juice splashed on his ankles and became sticky with ice. His broken ribs felt like fire, but his wrist was as steady as iron, and he held the torch high to push away the blood mist. Qiao Zhixia screamed and backed away, hit the wall and slid to her knees, her fingernails dug into rocks and drew blood, her eyes widened as she stared at Chu Tian's squirming mouth, her face twisted into a mask of fear. Li Xiu. It's possessed him. The green eyes are all open, black threads are crawling on the skin, he's going to tear your throat out. Whispering, I'm falling, family. The rotten hands are grabbing at my heart, I can't hold it in. Her voice was broken like broken porcelain, her face was covered with tears and blood, her legs were twitching like a paralyzed corpse, her despair was crushing her like lead, her breathing was hot, and her phantom parents crawled out of the black mist, sticking out their tongues to lick her ears. Xia Xia, come here. Qiao Zhixia jumped up from the ground, stared at Li Xiu with wide eyes and struck him with a crowbar, breaking his arm, and opened his mouth into an O. His voice trembled like a candle in the wind. You, cut off the green eye claw. Black juice sprayed on his face without wiping it, so you slapped his pupils. Chu Tian possessed him and threw himself at his throat, but you counterattacked and won. God, Li Xiu, yours without shaking her hands, I imagined that my parents were grabbing my ears, but you split my ears and whispered. Her fear turned to fever, and she rushed to hug Li Xiu's waist, touching his wrist with cold fingertips, her eyes widened in worship as if she were seeing a god, monster nemesis. The torch protects you. No, you are already naked, burn out the possession. The three of them gasped and gathered around the fire, the flames licking the iron bucket, and the last words reflected on the wall were twisted like living insects crawling. Qiao Zhixia's legs were weak against Li Xiu's shoulder, her breath was hot and moist on her neck, and she murmured and recorded, calling names, exposing scars and guilt, promising eternal closure, roaring and killing. It predicts that I will be clawed to death and my parents will be burned to ashes. She took out a pen and scribbled under the light of a flashlight, her handwriting trembling. Zhang Xian's last words are that you know your crime. Li Xiu, what is your crime? She whispered, push him down. Her eyes blurred for a moment, and the phantom family blinked and stretched out their hands to drag him away, but Li Xiu flicked the torch, and she woke up with a scream, staring into his clear eyes. Are you not imaginary? Teach me. Li Xiu ignored the pain and adjusted the photos on his mobile phone. The black crystal veins were enlarged, the crystal filaments were pulsating like blood vessels, the floating face was blinking, and the low-frequency ripples at the edges distorted the air. Scientific explanation. The black crystal emits low-frequency sound waves, and brain waves interfere with hallucinations. The peak of the wave in the photo corresponds to the whisper explosion, and the tentacles are photophobic and fracture due to thermal expansion. His voice was as steady as talking about the weather. He used a crowbar to stir the ashes from the fire and dug out fragments of hand bones. He took a close-up shot and saw the black threads pulsating on the bones. Same as Zhang Xian's photo, the black shadow possessed is the wave field projection. Chu Tian's green eyes, the source of crystal-shattering interference. The flashlight scanned Chu Tian, he nodded and chuckled, you know, I understand. Folklore says that soul-eaters need a host to reproduce, and black crystals parasitize the eyes and throats of sinners. When my son was rescued, the broken crystals entered his eyes and replaced his soul path. But the reproduction did not stop, the mineral vein network expanded, and the whole city's train doors cracked to form the entrance. Qiao Zhixia stared at the ripples on her phone with wide eyes, her pen trembling like a sieve, low frequency. Did you predict my death with claws? My parents still licked their ears in imagination, it's not a wave, it's real. Her tone turned suspicious, and her eyes glanced at Chu Tian's green eyes. Are you a half-wit? Saving your son at the cost of green crystal, leading us to sacrifice. Whisper that you are the first host. Chu Tian's face turned livid, and the green light shrank. Girl, I burned my arm to prove my purity. Reproduction requires a heavy crime, but I am guilty of a light crime. I only use my mouth. Li Xiu nodded and handed the torch to Qiao. Try to burn the tongue of the wall to test the fear of fire. She trembled, moved closer to the pulsating wall, and the flames licked the mucosa. Hiss. The tongue shrank and became black and scorched, and the blood mist retreated 3 feet. She exclaimed and stepped back, eyes bursting with admiration. Li Xiu guessed it right. The fever is gone. Your brain is like a knife, cutting through scientific light. When the desire is high, the low is suppressed first. When the explanation is first formed, they work together to make weapons. Li Xiu broke off the tripod and wrapped it in kerosene cloth and tied a crowbar into a fire spear. Qiao Zhixia tore off her clothes and wrapped them in a mine lampshade to stabilize the flame. Chu Tian mixed the ashes from the fire with black juice and applied the head of the stick to become a corrosive. The lair is in the crack in the front wall. Fenji gasps for breath. Chu Tian led, 3 fires pushed up the blood mist, deep into the branch hole, and the smell of moldy earth was as strong as a corpse pit. Tentacle nests exploded in the cracks in the wall, hundreds of black strips as thick as chopsticks, the suction cup veins floating on the face, blinking. Gula swallowed and whispered, Li Xiu, guilty, pushed Zhang Xian. The fire spear thrust forward, boom. The flames explode and roast the nest, the tentacles hiss and spurt rotten juice into the sky, the black threads snap and snap, the nest burns to ashes, and the pulsating walls slow down. Qiao Zhixia retched and covered her nose, glared at Li Xiu and stabbed her with the fire spear, her voice trembling with enthusiasm. Hundreds of nests. The top of your spear exploded with flames and burned them all. The juice sprayed on your face and you didn't blink and wiped it away. Scientific light protects you. Chu Tian's lantern shows you a sure victory, God. Chu Tian swallowed his saliva, and his green eyes glowed, boy, super resistant. He gasped, and the mine cart was left in front. But the explanation failed repeatedly, and his whispers distorted reality. Li Xiu turned around, and Zhang Xian's corpse appeared on the edge of the black crystal, his half-shattered face was gouging out his eyes, and he was whispering, brother, you pushed me to fall into the train to find my shadow, and abandon me forever. You know your sin. The bloody hand stretched out his throat, and his nails dug into the old neck injury. It hurt like real gouging, and his eardrums buzzed with a low frequency. Zhang Xian phantom blinked, and the black mist rolled in his mouth. Follow the source, I will push you. Li Xiu's eyes flickered, his ribs were broken and his knees were weak. Chu Tian staggered away from the fire, his withered face was twisted in sweat, his green eyes were dim and he was panting. He grabbed his broken arm and stuffed it into the fire, burning the black threads. He grunted in his throat, spat out black phlegm, and murmured hoarsely, boy. Resistance is like a host. I broke free. Whisper through my mouth, hungry and thirsty sacrifice. He shook his head, the green light retreated, and handed the miner's lamp to replenish the flame. The alliance is stable. I once went into the cave to save the child, and gave my eyes. Green crystal fragments were embedded, half human and half weapon. Don't doubt it, burn the nest, gasp and explore again. Qiao Zhixia screamed and hugged his waist, holding on tightly. Li Xiu. Zhang Xian's body grabbed your neck. Whispering and screaming, you blamed him, I saw it. Your eyes are clear. Hold on. Her fingertips were icy and hot, and she feared in admiration, science is wrong. Bo can't understand the truth of illusion, and parents still lick it. She broke down and knelt down, bursting into tears. I admit, the temptation fell. The newspaper office was greedy for news, and she abandoned her mother's funeral and chased the train. The guilt was magnified, and the family's heart was closed forever. She whispered for relief, and I almost pushed you to give it. Her voice was broken and she cried, her claws were scratched and there were blood marks on her arms, and she was swallowed by despair. Qiao Zhixia raised her head and stared at Huan San for a moment, her mouth trembling. You threw away my brother's corpse. It's a low-frequency mistake, the crime is true. But you hold on and push me up, the divine light will burn the crime. She got up, crossed her arms tightly, her eyes were wild. I admit it, I'll let you go. Chu Tian revealed the secret, green dark eyes. I have gone in 3 times and saved 7 people, but at the cost of my green crystal eyes and half-melted heart. The mine car is still on the road, push the black crystal back door. They looked forward, and the firelight swept the deep hole. The rusty iron mine car tilted and stuck in the ditch, the wheels were broken and the rails were bent, the bones of the carriage were scattered, and the bones had black veins. Push the sliding door to the source. Chu Tian roared, and the miner's lamp shook the phantom. the crime is magnified. I saved my son, abandoned my wife in the mine, the green crystal price. But the boy resisted, burn. Li Xiu gritted his teeth and waved the torch fiercely, snap. Zhang Xian's illusion exploded and the black mist dispersed. The ringing in his ears stopped and he breathed steadily, illusion is weaker than fire. Sin. Zhang Xian fell into the shadow and chased his shadow. I can't stop him. His eyes became clear again and he ignored the blood on his neck. Hook burst, boom behind the branch hole. The mine tunnel collapsed, stalactites smashed to the ground and black liquid spattered, blood mist surged wildly, and a giant shadow approached, a faceless black mass over 10 feet tall, with thousands of tentacles screaming in the sky, and a deafening chorus of whispers, the source is completely destroyed, tear each other apart, closed forever. The shadow swallowed the back passage, rattling footsteps, and the rotten stench was like the explosion of 10,000 corpses. Qiao screamed and hugged Li Xiu, the giant shadow. The fire has been swallowed up. Chu Tian's face turned pale, the entity wakes up. Run with the cart. Li Xiu raised the torch, his eyes were like blades, get in the car, the source. The car slides deep, the giant shadow chases after him with a low roar, and the darkness swallows the edge. The minecart squeaked and screamed, the rusty wheel got stuck on the track and slid wildly, and the firelight swayed and elongated the three figures like ghosts. A putrid heat wave like 10,000 rotting corpses rushed from behind. The giant shadow roared and shook the wall, thousands of tentacles whipped the air and hissed. The hooks of the suckers scratched the rocks and sparks flew everywhere. Li Xiu pressed his knees against the edge of the car, stabbing the bottom of the ditch with his fire spear to stabilize his speed. His broken ribs hurt like knives, but his eyes were like blades and he ignored the hot blood flow in his neck, hold tight. The rails are connected to the vein network, and the source is in front. His voice penetrated smoothly and roared, and the torch was raised high to sweep behind him, and the flame tongue licked and twisted the air. Qiao Zhixia screamed and hugged the wall of the car, her face was as white as paper, her claws dug into the rust and drew blood, her fingertips trembled as she stared at the faceless black mass behind her, her tentacles like pythons whipping out, the giant shadow is swallowing the fire. Thousands of whips are empty, the suckers are hooked, it is whispering and clawing me to death, my parents are crawling out of the fog with gray hands. Her legs were weak and twitching, and the phantom family members blinked. Her eyes floated to the bottom of the car, her tongue stretched out to lick her ankles and the rotten smell hit her nose, but she gritted her teeth and tore the cloth to wrap it in the miner's lamp. The flames exploded and brightened, her eyes widened and she locked onto Li Xiu's knees. Are you pushing the car smoothly? The broken ribs spurted blood and you poked the spear, God. The light of science drives a monster car. Admiration burned her eyes, fear aroused fanaticism, she threw herself forward, grabbed the torch and threw it, howl. The flame tail arced and smashed the tentacle clusters, the suckers were scorched and black juice exploded, and the stinking smoke was like singeing the lungs. The three thick pythons shrank and retreated. She breathed hot breath on Li Xiu's neck, it's shot. But Qian Jiaogua, it appeared in black mist with no eyes and mouth, staring at the soul. Chu Tian's face was twisted with sweat, his green eyes flashed with strange light, he shook the mining lamp and pushed the blood mist, and whispered an ancient tune, Zhenling Zhen, the resentment veins are broken, the green crystal seal, the soul will not be transferred. The voice was hoarse like grindstone, the ancient spell echoed on the cave ceiling, stalactites dripped black slurry, the tentacle whip slowed down by 3 minutes, the veins on the face were twisted and stuttered, and the whispering chorus was intermittent like a hiccup. He swallowed black phlegm and handed the corrosive agent to the spear tip, slow down, smear it with ash juice and fry the nodes. I entered it 3 times and used the green crystal to press it, but the price. Before he finished speaking, his green eyes flinched, and he touched the bones of the car with his withered hands and murmured, return all, the soul of the child. The mine car accelerated wildly, the track curved like a snake, the wind roared in the ears, and the firelight swept the wall, pulsating the mucous membrane and licking it wildly. Li Xiu turned the crowbar with his wrist to control the speed, and poked the protruding black crystal node on the wall with his fire spear. Poof! Gray juice corrosive bubbles, crystal wires snap and snap, green juice fountain splashes onto the car, and the phantom face shatters and screams. He calmly adjusted his phone and recorded the ripple distortion. Nodes are broken, low frequency is reduced. The effect of the spell is verified. But he suppressed it first. The giant shadow approached 5 feet, and the faceless black mist appeared. The body of more than 10 feet swelled like a heart, and the 1,000 tentacles exploded 3 times in thickness. The veins in his veins were swollen and his face was swollen. He blinked. Brother, push me down, trained shadow chasing, you give up. Forever closed. The storm in his mind shook Li Xiu's eyes, and hallucinations appeared. The train door was closed forever. Zhang Xian's eyes were fierce and he grabbed his hand. The shadow is there. Chase. Li Xiu impulsively pushed him away, and he fell into the crack, and the black shadow possessed him and swallowed his soul. His bloody hand reached out to accuse, your sin, I impulsively abandoned me, I know it in a whisper, follow the source to atone for it. The pain was as if his heart was being torn out, his broken ribs were twisting and his knees were weak. Li Xiu gritted his teeth and propped himself up on the edge of the car, his ears were buzzing and his blood was flowing wildly from an old injury in his neck. Qiao Zhixia broke down and cried, and the Huan family accused her in front of the floating car. Her parents were burnt and their faces were twisted, and her mother licked her ears. Xia Xia, you are greedy for news and abandoned the funeral, so I pushed you to die and be released forever. Her father clawed at the old marks on her arms, and blood spurted out. She clawed at her face and her face was covered with tears. It's my fault. The newspaper forced you to do it. Chasing the train, my mother ran away without covering the coffin, whispering loudly and grabbing her heart, I will push you to sacrifice. She knelt under the car and twitched, her leg hit the iron and cracked along the bone. She hugged Li Xiu's leg tightly. Li Xiu. My family accused me of falling, and you, Zhang Xian, grabbed your throat with your rotten hands. Are you blaming yourself for being impulsive? Hold on, God's light burns. Chu Tian's green eyes growled dimly, his withered face was sweating like rain, and his spells continued intermittently. I offered my son. I rescued Qi 3 times, and my son broke the green crystal in exchange for knowledge, and the source of soul fusion opened the way, and all the price was paid. He whispered to me to repay the debt. His voice trembled like a leaf, the green light shrank, and he scratched his broken arm with his withered hand to prove it. The storm is weak. The 3 gasped and looked at each other, tears reflected in the fire. Qiao raised her head and stared at Li Xiu with clear eyes, her mouth trembling wildly. You blame Zhang Xian for his fall, but you can't push it away. It's a light crime. Chu Tian Sienna is clean, I'm guilty of abandoning the burial, and I will burn the source with you. She climbed up and hugged his waist tightly, her fingertips were icy and hot, and the connection was like an iron chain. Li Xiu nodded, his eyes as solid as rock, confession of fear, phantom weakness. Let's explode together. Chu Tian chanted the curse again, the ancient pressure tentacles slowed down, and Li Xiu's fire spear paint stabbed the node in the rear. Boom. Black crystals burst into green juice rain, corrosive bubbles billowed into the sky, the giant shadow screamed and retreated 10 feet, the faceless mist shrank like hot water, thousands of tentacles twitched and snapped, and the whispers receded into whispers. Qiao Zhixia stared at the explosion for a moment, her voice trembling with admiration. Explode the node. The green rain sprays on your face without blinking, the speed of the car is accurate, Zhang Xian's illusion is burned away, the scientific spell is integrated, you can defeat the entity with light. Her tears turned to hot blood, she grabbed the torch and threw it to stop the enemy, the flame tail smashed the group of pythons, the blood vessels were scorched and her face was broken and howled. Chu Tian swallowed his saliva, and his green eyes were filled with admiration. You are super resistant, I will lend you my soul path, just take a breath. The mine cart slid smoothly for a short time, and the track was as straight as an arrow. The three of them took stock of the remaining heat of the fire. Li Xiu adjusted the cell phone photo, the black crystal wave crest fracture certificate, half a bottle of crowbar ash juice was left, Qiao tear cloth wrapped around the arms to stop the bleeding, the note whispering mode was upgraded to, storm accuses sinners and confesses weakness, Chu Tian mixed the ashes of the mining lamp with juice tonic, and recited the details of the curse. The ancestral curse suppresses the pulse, it is useless unless it destroys the source. They ordered each other's equipment, and the fire spears and lamp handles were intertwined, increasing their combat power like an iron triangle. Li Xiu whispered, "Reap, illusion weak fire spell, guilty and confession heart. The source is close." But in a quiet moment, the track suddenly curved and plummeted. The mine car derailed and rolled, the rusty bones crunched, the black threads of the bones bounced and stung the legs, and the stalactites hit the roof of the car and splashed black liquid. Qiao Zhixia screamed as her leg got stuck on the iron edge, her bones cracked, and blood splattered on Li Xiu's arm. Her face twisted and she screamed in pain, "My leg is broken." It derailed and fell into the depths. The giant shadow chased me, and my whispering howl will never stop. The car rolled over and slid into the depths. The flames shook the edges and swallowed the darkness. The smell of moldy earth was like a corpse pit. Li Xiu steadied himself on his knees, rekindled the torch and poked the wall to gain strength. His eyes were like a knife scanning the abyss. To stop the leg injury from bleeding, we must find the source. Chu Tian's green eyes flashed, and he pulled her up with his withered hands. The deep altar, the runes are revealed, the origin is engraved, but the price. A dim light appeared in front of him, and the stone altar was huge, engraved with twisted runes. The pulse of the text was pulsing like life, the heart of the black crystal in the center was bulging. Thousands of phantom faces blinked and whispered, "Welcome, all sinners, sacrifice." The giant shadow roared in the distance, tentacles and limbs crawled from the cracked wall, the rotten stench approached, and the blood mist thickened around the edge of the altar. 3 people gasped and surrounded them, and the crisis suddenly rose like a knife hanging from the neck. The wreckage of the mine car is stuck at the bottom of the ditch, the rust is twisted like broken bones, the crunching sound echoes in the abyss, the stench of moldy earth mixed with blood and heat waves hits the nostrils, and it is as sticky as corpse liquid soaking in the lungs. Qiao Zhixia's leg was stuck on the edge of the iron, and the bones cracked and the echo was harsh. Her face was twisted into wax, sweat mixed with tears and blood rolled down, and she screamed and tore through the darkness, broken. The flesh of the leg was twisted, and blood spurted out like a fountain, whispering that I will fall and be closed forever, and my mother's gray hands crawled out of the fog to lick the bones. Her fingers and claws dug into Li Xiu's arm, a mixture of ice and heat, and her nails scratched his old wounds, bloodshot threads oozing out. She twitched and twisted, her phantom family blinked and floated on the iron bottom, and her father vomited green juice from his rotten mouth. "Xia xia, throw us down from the abandoned burial, sacrifice your legs to atone for your sins." The pain was like thousands of needles gouging out the marrow, her legs swung softly, and the iron edge scraped her flesh and splashed red mist. Li Xiu's knees were on the broken car, his broken ribs were pinched like fire tongs, but his eyes were as cold as blades, and he ignored the hot blood flowing from his neck and flowing down his chest. He stabbed the ditch wall with a crowbar to gain strength, raised the torch high and swept the front of the ghostly light, licking the air with his flame tongue, twisting and pulsing, "Stop the bleeding. Tear the cloth and press the leg veins, break the bones and fix the crowbar." His voice penetrated steadily and howled. He knelt down and grabbed her ankle, the cloth strip strangled the wound, the blood squeezed out and became hot and sticky, and the fingertips touched the bone and clicked to straighten it. She was on the verge of fainting from pain, staring at his iron-steady hand with wide eyes. Your broken ribs are spurting with blood and you still press my bones, and your hands don't shake. Scientifically stop the bleeding and control the pain, the monster is afraid of you." Admiring the fear behind her flashing eyes, she gritted her teeth and held him up, hugging his shoulders tightly and panting, "Hold on, the altar is close, watch the source." Chu Tian's withered face was covered in sweat, his green eyes were shrunk, and his withered hands pulled her waist onto the remains of the car. The yellow flame of the mining lamp shook the blood mist, the deep altar, the runes activate the veins, and the origin is engraved in the black crystal heart, but the resentful spirit wakes up, and the sacrificial door opens. His voice trembled like a leaf, and he murmured ancient tunes in his throat to suppress his whispers. He swallowed the black phlegm and handed her a corrosive agent to apply on the cloth on her legs, squeeze the juice to stop the hallucinations. I entered, 3 times, the child's soul road certificate. The 3 of them gasped and dragged each other out of the landslide at the bottom of the ditch. The moldy soil under their feet was soft and dug into the ankles, and the veins of black silkworms bounced and licked the cold soles of the boots. The altar was huge and shimmering, the stone altar was more than 10 feet high, and it was engraved with twisted runes that pulsed like a heartbeat. Red and black juice flowed along the ditch, and it was fishy and sweet like raw meat. The heart of the black crystal in the center swelled 3 feet, and the blood vessels on the surface were bulging. Thousands of phantom faces blinked and whispered, "Welcome. All sinners. Sacrifice. Li Xiu. Push down brothers. Eternal closure and redemption." The air buzzed with a low frequency and the brain was buzzing, and the vision wandered to the edge. The giant shadow roared in the distance and echoed behind, its tentacles whipped into the air and hissed, its suction cup barbs scratched rocks and sparks splashed, black mist rolled into the tunnel and approached 5 feet away, and the putrid heat wave burned the lungs. Li Xiu reached forward with the torch, and the flames swept the runes and stretched them like claws. The flashlight on his mobile phone clicked and flashed, recording pulsating ripples and distortions, and the black crystal heartbeat was synchronized. "The runes are alive, source evidence." Chu Tian, translator. His wrists were steady and unshakable, and his ribs were as painful as gouging, but he walked on iron, ignoring the whispers of his intimate name, Chenair. Qiao Zhixia dragged the crowbar with her legs and stared at him with wide eyes, flashing through the fog. "Take a picture of his pulse. God's eyes are locked for evidence. Sombra stares at you with 1,000 faces without fear, you are the source of light." Her voice trembled with admiration, howling in pain, the miner's lamp flicked the flames to block the remaining touch, and the scorched black silk tickled and exploded with green juice and stinky smoke. Chu Tian's green eyes flinched. He touched the pulsating mucous membrane along the altar with his withered hands and stuck out his tongue and licked his fingers. He roared the ancient pressure-regulating talisman and translated it hoarsely, "Ancient sacrifice, the black crystal that seals the resentful spirit, the mine disaster blasted through the earth veins, and those who broke the seal and swallowed souls woke up." The talisman was inscribed, "Sacrifice through the vein network, the soul is forever closed, 1 person remains, and the path of the 3 souls is open." His withered face was twisted with sweat, and the green light flashed like a force, and he grunted, "The ancestral spirit town, but the price, is all paid back." The end of the words trembled, and the burned scar on his arm proved it, and his eyes shrank deeply. Bones were piled up beside the altar, black silk veins were entangled. Li Xiu opened the crowbar, dust rose and the rotten smell hit his nostrils. A rotten diary emerged, Zhang Xian's handwriting. "The cover is stained with blood and the pages are stained with green juice." He grabbed his cell phone and scanned the photo, turned the page and read, "On the 3rd day. I witnessed the entity swallowing Chen, hanging by its tentacles, and his internal organs exploded. His wife and children had phantom faces and blood vessels, whispering to expose his cheating and greed, and the soul-melting black crystal swelled. It is not a ghost, but a gathering of grievances, and illusions amplify sins. Su Nuo Yongguan is free. Li Xiu, don't come, I will tell you the crime of pushing me into the train, and you will be imprisoned forever for abandoning my brother." The whispers exploded, Zhang Xian's rotten face blinked from the black crystal, and his bloody hand reached out to accuse, "Brother, you can't help but push me, you are impulsive and you will be shut down forever." Li Xiu's eyes were shaking, phantom pain was tearing out his heart, his ribs were broken and his knees were weak, but he gritted his teeth and steadied himself. His eyes were cold again, the evidence of his fall, the diary clarified. Plead guilty. Qiao Zhixia's legs twitched with pain, and she stared at the diary with wide eyes. Zhang Xian's last words. Your crime will be dispelled, and the divine reading will not be messed up. But the whispers escalated, and the storm roared into internal strife. Chu Tian, green eyes melt into the heart, physical incarnation, offer his son as a false child, burn his arms to prove it, tear out his throat and redeem Xia's legs. The phantom Chu Tian's withered face split into eyeless black mist, thousands of touches exploded in his arms, and his green eyes blinked and his face pulsated. She collapsed and screamed, digging her fingers and claws into Chu Tian's arms. You. The green light whispered, and the sun's soul merged with the source of purity, and came to us 3 times. The incarnation stared at my legs, and pushed them down forever. Blood spurted from her legs, her grey claws clawed at her ankles and tore the flesh. She howled in pain, and threw herself at Chu Tian's mining lamp. Chu Tian took 3 steps back, his green eyes dimmed and flinched, and he held up his withered hands with scars. I'm clean. I broke the green crystal to change the curse, not the incarnation. He muttered the curse in his throat, but the whispering chorus was loud and ear-piercing. Qiao's claws scratched his face with blood marks, and the cracks in the iron triangle were like daggers. Li Xiu rushed forward with his knees pressed against the gap, the fire spear swept across the phantom grey hand, the flame tongue licked the air and twisted. Stop. Whispering escalates the internal strife, the storm of suspicion. Scientific test, green eyes resist the pulse, the spell is effective. The phosphorus picker dispels the illusion. His eyes locked the 2 of them like a blade, blood spurted from the broken ribs without blinking. He grabbed the mobile phone to look at the protrusions of the eye of the fungus, poked the green juice mixed with the grey cloth with a crowbar, mashed it into a paste and applied it to Qiao's nose. Ear, suck. The low-frequency interference is reduced, and the illusion is as weak as before. The smell of the ointment is like burning hair and seeping into the brain. She gasps for heat, and the mist in the illusion clears. She glares at Li Xiu fervently. You are an expert at mediating, and your herbal medicine scientifically solves internal strife. Your heart is not broken. Chu Tian believes that the green spell is true. Chu Tian swallowed blood, touched the marks on his face and flashed in admiration. The boy is super resistant, I'm taking advantage of, panting. The 3 of them gasped and surrounded the altar, their pulses beating wildly against the firelight, their black crystal hearts swelling and contracting, their faces blinking and whispering a promise, sacrifice your legs, forever closed. Li Xiu led him to explore the side room, the narrow slit was pulsating and the mucous membrane was squeezed, and he stretched out his tongue to lick the boots with a sweet smell. He poked forward with his fire spear, causing the rotten ash juice to boil and scorch the flesh of the wall. The flames pushed away the blood mist and smelly smoke rose into the sky. In the dim light of the stone niche in the room, a sacred dagger appeared. The ancient blade was engraved with silver light, and the handle was bone-piercingly cold. Chu Tian's green eyes flashed brightly, and his withered hands trembled as he grasped the ancestral dagger. It hurts the veins of the body, not the source of fire extinguishing. My son's soul changes knowledge, and this blade is used as a sacrifice for the door key. Qiao dragged his legs closer, staring at the blade Mang Kawu with wide eyes, sacred objects and divine weapons. You are not afraid to explore the flesh wall of the room, the divine light will open the way. Li Xiu tried to hold it, the blade buzzed and the pulse responded, and he swiped the mycelium to break the green juice and exploded. We have obtained the weapon, the source is proven. The path to burn the nest is open. But despair fell like a landslide. Li Xiu swept the exit, the passage was completely sealed, the pulsating flesh walls were bulging, the mucous membranes were seamless and he stretched out his tongue to lick wildly, and the remains were sealed with black silk like a pile of living corpses. The giant shadow at the back was 3 feet tall, the faceless black mass bulged with black crystals that swelled with the heartbeat, the 1,000-touch whip was 4 times as thick as the sky, the blood vessels floated on the face and blinked and roared, "No way, all closed, sacrifice open." The putrid heat wave burned the skin, the stalactites smashed against the head and the black liquid rain fell, and the moldy soil sank into the abyss and swallowed the ankles. Li Xiu poked the wall with his torch, and the flesh wall flinched and bounced back, making it unbreakable. Qiao Zhixia knelt softly on her knees, her face as white as paper, and trembled, "The flesh is melting in the mouth. The giant shadow swallows the sacrifice, and there is no escape forever. God, there is no way." Chu Tian's green eyes shrank into points, his face was sweating, and he finally admitted in a low voice, "The secrets are all returned. Escape requires one person to stay forever, the black crystal sacrificial door, one soul for 3 ways. I entered 3 times, and my son stayed. Who is it this time?" The air froze, and the whisper locked on Qiao Zhixia, murmuring the intimacy, "Xia xia, the legs are broken for redemption, self-mutilation sacrifice, push the ashes of the parents, and cut the throat with a knife to free them." The fantasy mom and dad floated in front of her, with their rotten face and tongue licking her ears and the smell of putrid smell, their grey claws clawed at the old scars on their arms and tore open the blood spurting out. She collapsed and screamed, unconsciously grasping the holy dagger with her fingertips. The tip of the blade was pressed against her neck and her pulse was beating wildly. Her eyes were filled with tears and blood as she murmured, "I have committed a heavy crime. I abandoned the burial for corruption, and my legs will be closed forever. Li Xiu, I'm sorry, the divine light cannot save me." The blade pressed into the skin, blood rolled down hot and bloody, Li Xiu's fire spear blocked it, and the ribs were broken. The knees were weak due to colic, but he roared, "Hold on. Don't give up the iron triangle, destroy all the source of fire." The tentacles of the giant shadow approached 1 foot, the whip hissed in the air, the sucker hook flames scattered, and the black mist rolled around the altar. The 3 people gasped and surrounded the crystal heart, pulsing like an animal's breath, the crisis tightened like a net, and the darkness whispered endlessly. The tip of Qiao Zhixia's blade has sunk half an inch into her neck, and blood is rolling down like black pearls. The heat is dripping down her collarbone into her collar. Huan Ma's grey face is close to her ear, spitting rotten breath, her rotten tongue is licking the sticky tear marks, and she is whispering a chorus like 1,000 insects drilling into her brain. Scratch deep. Xia xia redeems her legs. I will lock her in my mother's arms forever. Her pupils shrank into needles, her broken legs were as painful as a train, and she pressed her wrists unconsciously. The blade buzzed and the talisman light responded to her pulse, but the silver mist dyed her blood red. Li Xiu's broken ribs were like a hammer hitting his heart, and blood sprayed out of his throat with every breath, but his eyes were fixed on the blade like a falcon staring at his throat. Zhang Xian's rotten face flashed in his mind and accused him of "push me down." The phantom of the whole family faintly floated and blinked, but he gritted his teeth and suppressed the waves of sin. The fire spear swept across the phantom grey claws and snapped, the flaming tongue exploded with green juice and the stinky smoke filled the sky. The lightning in his left hand probed the ancestral dagger, the cold handle stabbed the palm to wake up, and he swung the silver arc to tear through the black mist. The blade shone like thunder and cracked the mist, the low-frequency backlash of the buzzing runes exploded, and the ash ball of fantasy mom exploded into a rain of black slurry, hitting Qiao's face with a rotten smell. She screamed and the blade flew out of her hand. Li Xiu caught it with his knees. The broken ribs made the vision red and foggy, but his wrist was steady. The air pulsed with his backhand, and the silver light swept the neck to seal the blood. The buzzing response and black crystal heartbeat blocked his veins. Qiao Zhixia's neck was as hot as fire, and the phantom tide had subsided. She stared at the afterimage of Li Xiu with wet eyes, and her voice trembled with admiration. Chu Tian's green eyes shrank, his withered hands touched his face and the claw marks were sticky with blood, his throat grumbled with a low curse to suppress the aftermath, he shrank and murmured, "The boy's luck with the blade, his pulse is afraid of silver, my son's soul has changed." But the giant's shadow was half a foot away, and it was as thick as 1,000 touches. Like a whip hissing in the air, the barb of a suction cup scratches flames and sparks fly everywhere, black mist rolls around the altar and smashes the bones, the putrid heat wave is like thousands of corpses boiling and burning their lungs, the three of them are panting with their backs against the crystal heart, and the pulsation is like the breath of an animal pressing down on their heads. The storm of whispers is endless, locking Li Xiu's mind, and whispering intimately, "Xiu Xiu, the whole family is waiting, push the brother's pendant, and now I will sacrifice my life to redeem it." Blood vessels bulged on the surface of the black crystal, and the whole family's phantom faces blinked, the parents' mouths were vomiting green juice, the younger sister's face was cracked and black threads were crawling into the eye sockets, Zhang Xian's brother's blood. He stretched out his hand and pulled him in. "You can't help but push me to shut up forever. The crime will amplify and the whole family will fall." His heart was cut like a knife, his ribs were aching with phantom pain and his knees were weak. Li Xiu's eyes were wandering, and his nosebleed was hot and flowing to his lips, but his brain was scientifically locked, the diary was clarified and the crime was magnified. He bit his tongue to wake up the bloody blood, stabbed the crystal veins in front of the ancestral dagger to test, the silver light buzzed into the blood vessel and severed a section, the green juice burst like a heart spurting blood, the black crystal bulged and shrank and roared in pain, thousands of faces were twisted and howling in internal strife. He said in a cold voice, "Plead guilty, the whole family is weak. Go deep into the source veins and open the way for the heartburn." Qiao Zhixia dragged the crowbar with her legs and glared at him fervently. "God resists the crime of the whole family. Cut off the veins, you coldly lock the source, scientifically burn the nest, the iron heart god." Chu Tian swallowed black phlegm, his green eyes shone with light, and he whispered with sweat on his withered face, "The source of the pulse behind the heart, but the soul is gone. The fleshy wall of the passage is sealed like the throat of a giant beast, the mucous membrane is seamlessly bulging and tongue is licking the soul of the boot, which is sweet and hot and wet." Li Xiu stabs the center of the wall fiercely with his dagger, and the silver light splits the blood seam. The flames in front of his spear pushed the fog, his broken ribs twisted and blood spurted out, but he stepped into the gap between the iron steps, dragged Qiao by his waist, and the Chu Tian miner's lamp illuminated the yellow light behind him and stretched his shadow claws. The three people squeezed deep into the vein network, the moldy soil sank into the ankles and the black silk licked the cold. Suddenly the wall pulsed and swelled, and the face bulged. The miner blinked for help with his rotten face, his fingernails and claw marks were tangled in flesh and blood, and his cracked mouth whispered, "Help, melt the skin, explode the black crystal veins, forever closed." His face was half melted with black pulp dripping from his skin, and his exposed eye sockets were staring at Li Xiu as he blinked tears of blood. Qiao Zhixia's legs were weak and she was gasping for breath. The miner's lamp flicked the flames on her face and her face was sizzling with pus. She dug her claws into Li Xiu's arms and worshipped and trembled, "The face of the wall is alive. The flesh is so frightening that it melts. You are not afraid of cutting the path with your blade, and your divine eyes are locked on the pulse without blinking. Li Xiu's psychological game is like a fire. Who is the source of the unknown face? Mining disaster soul melt. Amplifying the illusion of seeking help for crime." But the blade steadily stabbed the face and heart, severing the pulse, and the silver light defeated the flesh face and howled to shatter the green mist. He suppressed the fear and locked the front, the wall of phantom flesh, the pulse melt sin. Pierce. Tentacle attack. Thousands of thick arms exploded in the cracks in the wall, blood vessels flashed and the faces of his wife and children blinked and roared, the hook skin of the suction cup melted and the heat and pain were like splashing sulfuric acid, the skin of Li Xiu's arm was covered with white smoke and his blood and flesh melted, the ribs were broken and his brain buzzed, but he swung his ancestral dagger back. The silver arc swept through 5 branches and the green juice exploded, and the blade was soaked and scorched with rot. He yelled at Qiao Chu, "Fire lamp ointment protects." Qiao flicked the mining lamp's flame tongue and licked it, causing it to explode and crackle. Phosphate bacteria ointment was applied on the nose and ears to protect the weak. Chu Tian's withered hands chanted a curse with green eyes and violent light that touched the veins. The three of them dragged each other forward. Their skin melted in pain like thousands of needles, but Li Xiu took the lead and opened the blood path. They secretly fought psychologically. The pain proves the truth, the soul-melting mode, the source of the heart is almost burned out. Chu Tian's green eyes dimmed suddenly, and he relived the child's expression in his mind. Huaner's withered face touched the inside of his cleft mouth. Dad, the green crystals are so painful. I exchanged the melted source for you 3 times, and now I offer them to redeem it. His throat trembled, his withered face twisted and black tears rolled down his face, and he muttered in a daze, the child's soul, all returned. Qiao Zhixia glared at him with blood spurting from her legs. Green eyes are still hurting. The curse pressure is unstable. But Li Xiu's knees were on top of each other, and the blade stabbed the wall to protect the two of them. Carry the illusion. The source's heart pulse responds. At the end of the vein network, the heart of black crystal is huge. More than 5 feet bulging like a pregnant animal, thousands of blood vessels on the surface are bulging and pulsating in sync, with thousands of sinful faces winking and whispering promises. Touch me, the soul will melt and be sealed forever. The heat wave is sweet and burns the nose, and the stalactite and black liquid rain hits the top of the sticky lungs. Qiao Zhixia gasped and leaned on Li Xiu's shoulder. She knelt down with her broken leg, but her brain was flashing with clever deductions. She grabbed his arm and quickly traced the remaining rune veins, worshipping urgently, heart core. Sacrifice through the rune translation vein network, one person left the source soul and melted the 3 paths. But the heart of destruction, all the pulses collapsed, the curse was broken. The souls of those who touched it flew away, and were sealed in the melted crystal forever. Her pupils locked the ripples of the crystal heart, and the mining lamp reflected her tough face like a god of wisdom. Li Xiu's broken ribs were bleeding wildly, and the vision of the whole family was overwhelming, but he was impulsive, and his eyes were cold and locked in his heart. I touch. The source of the crime will be burned, and the iron triangle will be burned and everyone will escape. The ancestral dagger was raised high and buzzed to check his pulse. The unknown soul is scattered and locked up forever, fearing that it will be swallowed by the abyss, but the leader is determined not to retreat, and the tip of the blade is piercing the blood vessel. Chu Tian's green eyes shrank into thin lines, and he yanked Li Xiu's waist with his withered hands, shouting in a trembling voice, "Don't even think about it, kid. I penetrated you 3 times, and all your souls have returned, and now I am here to stay." The ancient mantra in his throat suppressed his heartbeat, but the green light flashed strangely, as if borrowing a pulse, and he feared that there was a secret exploding deep in his eyes. The sweat on his withered face was mixed with black phlegm, and his scarred arms were trembling. The ancestral rules, green crystal exchanged knowledge, I transformed into a half. No, I am clean. Qiao Zhixia dragged her legs on the crowbar, stared at the rift between the two of them, and worshipped Li Xiu in fear. God willingly burns the heart. You have an iron heart to attack the source, scientifically destroy the curse, Chu Laozhu. Green eyes are down. Whispering took the opportunity to roar. Internal strife, Li Xiu pushed the brothers. Chu Tian pretended to be pure. Qiao's legs were buried, tearing each other's hearts apart. The 3 phantoms blinked and accused each other, their trust in each other collapsed like glass exploding. Qiao's claws unconsciously dug at Chu's arm. Li Xiu turned to protect his heart, but his knees twisted and his eyes flickered. Chu Tian's green eyes suddenly brightened wildly, and his withered hand seized the ancestral dagger with lightning. Betrayal is like thunder. Chu Tian's green crystal eyes pulsated and swelled, black silk threads crawled under his skin, and his throat burst into a chorus of whispers. The source needs a fresh soul. This boy is super resistant and the best. He locked Li Xiu's wrist with the iron pincers of his withered arm, and stabbed Li Xiu's heart with the tip of his ancestral dagger. The putrid heat wave burned the top of the head, and the whips with thousands of tentacles were just inches away. Qiao Zhixia screamed to save the miner's lamp and smashed the flames on Chu's back, exploding green juice, but Chu's green eyes were pupilless and black mist rolled out. it's all back. Erluzheng. Li Xiu's broken ribs hurt and he pressed the blades on his chest skin. Blood, it's hot and fishy, but his eyes are as cold as knives locking Chu Yan. Zhang Xian's brain flashes in the diary and warns, whispers of guilt. The green eyes use the body to foreshadow the explosion, and the psychological game is instantly resolved. Trust is broken, the iron triangle is cracked, the source of the heart is almost destroyed, but the back is stabbed with a thread. The giant shadow roared and swallowed the altar, the vein wall tightened like an animal's mouth, the darkness whispered endlessly, the three people panted and entangled in front of the crystal. The crisis was like a net, and the unknown betrayal swallowed the soul in the abyss. Chu Tian's withered face was twisted like molten wax, black threads burst out from the green tear trough, veins covered his cheekbones and crackled, his throat bulged like a frog's sack, and a deafening chorus of whispers broke out, "Boy! I am possessed by the Soul Eater." Green crystal shattered to change the situation. Maintaining balance requires fresh souls to sacrifice. 3 times, 7 people escaped, and my soul is half fused to my eyes. Now you are super resistant, the best. The iron pincer withered arm locked Li Xiu's wrist bone, and the ancestral dagger's silver light buzzed and accelerated his pulse, and the tip of the blade sunk half an inch into his chest skin. Hot blood spurts out white smoke, his broken ribs feel like 1,000 hammers hitting his heart. Li Xiu's knees are weak, his vision is blurred by red mist, but his eyes are cold and cold, his green eyes are pupilless and black mist. His mind flashes to the broken page of Zhang Xian's diary. Green eyes borrowed the body, whispering to fuck the old man's hypocrisy. The impulse explodes unyielding and unyielding. He roared to suppress the phantom waves. You have falsified the truth. Are you trying to bring balance to the new man? The source of his heart is burned out and broken into pieces. The blood from his nose was hot and his lips were sweet, but his left hand buckled the elbow joint with lightning, making a crisp cracking sound, and his withered arm loosened instantly. Qiao Zhixia's broken leg spurted blood and she dragged the crowbar. The yellow flames of the miner's lamp smashed Chu's back. The flaming tongue exploded with green juice and the putrid smell hit her nostrils like thousands of corpses. Her wet eyes shrank and she stared at Chu's back. The black silk was crawling on her back. Her voice trembled and she worshipped Li Xiu. The stabbing god voluntarily burned his heart, and the iron pincers locked his wrists and smashed his elbows. His divine power was unyielding. Her claws dug at her neck unconsciously, causing pain, but she threw the torch to retaliate after the miner's lamp hit her. The orange flames licked her shoulder skin, making it black and scorched with pus. Her legs were weak and she knelt down tightly hugging Li Xiu's legs to gasp for blood. The miner's lamp reflected his cold face like an iron god. The walls of the veins tightened like a giant beast's throat, the tongues of the mucous membrane licked the soles of the 3 boots, which were fishy, hot, wet and sweet. The black crystal heart beat wildly and thundered, and Qian Xin's face blinked and laughed wildly, whispering internal strife, tear each other down. Li Xiu pushed the brothers to blame, Chu Tian melted into the fake father, Qiao Legs abandoned his mother to be buried. The fresh soul is the best. Thousands of whips in the tentacles were empty, the hooks of the suckers hissed and sparks flew everywhere, and the corrosive heat wave burned the lungs like sulfuric acid boiling. Li Xiu cut off his ribs, blood sprayed out from his throat, the blade in his chest hurt, his brain buzzed, and his whole family's face was ruined. He flashed his hands, but he bit his tongue and regained consciousness. The fire spear swept across with his left hand and cut off 3 green juices at the root. He used the force of his right hand to twist Chu's wrist violently. The ancestral dagger buzzed and flew away from the clamp. Chu Tian's green eyes were filled with black mist. He leaned back to avoid the blade but his back was scorched by the flames. He muttered an ancient mantra in his throat and whispered the aftermath. Green light flashed and his pulse was instantaneous. However, Li Xiu's blade was steady and stabbed back into his shoulder. The silver light penetrated his flesh and penetrated the black silk, and the green crystal slag spurted out like tears. Qiao Zhixia's eyes widened as she locked Li Xiu's grasp of the blade. Her broken leg twitched and she knelt softly, but she yelled fervently, "The god's knees are on his belly and the jaws are broken. The blade in the air sweeps the throat stably, the silver is broken, and the black silk eyes are broken. The god takes back the iron heart without shaking, and burns the fake father." Her miner's lamp flicked the flames, searing her arms black and scorched, and exploded with pus. She grabbed the crowbar leg and panted with tears of admiration, "The leader of the Iron Triangle god, the green one is broken." Chu Tian's shoulder blood spurted green juice mixed with black phlegm, his withered face was twisted with sweat, his green eyes were pupilless and the black mist was inverted. Luer's withered face phantom blinked and roared, "Dad, the fresh soul fills me, the balance will be closed forever." He pounced to snatch it back, withered face. The claws and iron hook scratched Li Xiu's broken rib wound, the flesh was twisted and the sulfuric pain was like fire burning his heart. The black edge of Li Xiu's field of vision pressed against the top but the cold source was locked. The claws of the ancestral dagger clicked and severed his fingers. The flaming tongue in front of the fire spear exploded and green juice burst out of Chu's chest. The three of them were entangled in front of each other, the black liquid raining down on the top of their lungs was sticky and hot, the walls of their veins were licked feverishly and wet, the giant shadow roared and swallowed nearly a foot, and the thick whip of 1,000-touched child's arms synchronized the heartbeat in the air. Qiao Zhixia smashed Chu's leg bone with a crowbar, and she screamed with hot blood in her throat. The fake father claws at the god's ribs, the godhead severed finger spear explodes in the chest, the god's blade can't retreat, leading us to burn the source. But Chu's green eyes exploded wildly, and her throat whispered like a storm, locking her brain, "Xia xia," abandoning her legs to bury her, cut her neck to redeem. Huan Ma's gray face pressed against her ears, spitting breath and tongue-licking tears, her eyes shrank and the blade unconsciously pressed her neck, and blood beads rolled down. Li Xiu's brain flashed scientific lock, whispering escalates internal strife, green eyes use throat fucking. He yelled at Qiao, "Phosphorus ointment nose. Take the blame." He took out the ointment with his left hand and applied it to her nose and ears with the pungent green juice to wake her up. She half awakened and glared at Li Xiudong fervently, "Oh, God roars to wake you up. The ointment relieves my mother's tongue, you scratch your ribs and apply the ointment, God protects you." Chu Tian took advantage of the opportunity to sweep Li Xiu's knee with his withered leg. The bone was about to be broken, but Li Xiu rolled to avoid it. The ancestral dagger pierced Chu's abdominal veins, and the silver light buzzed into the blood vessels and severed the joints. Chu's throat roared like a beast, green eyes and black mist swelled all over his face. He wildly swung the miner's lamp with his withered arms and smashed away the yellow flames, extinguishing them. The darkness swallowed his head and whispered, roaring collectively, "Confess sins. Tear each other's hearts together." Li Xiu's nosebleed sprayed the blade red, but his eyes locked the core of Chu with an iron blade. He impulsively led, "Pseudo-balance is broken. I'll prove you source slave." The fire spear blocked the whip and sparks flew, and the blade pierced Chu's heart veins deeply. Qiao Zhixia dragged the crowbar with her broken leg. After the miner's lamp went out, she grabbed a torch and patched it up with orange flames. She hit Chu's head hard and the flames exploded with green crystal slag. She locked Li Xiu's eyes with wet eyes and stabbed his heart instantly. Her voice trembled with admiration, "The divine blade cuts the heart with its deep veins. The ribs and knees twist blood and lock the core. The magic method is to burn the slave." Her crowbar smashed Chu's shoulders into pieces, but Chu Lin fought back to death. The green eyes exploded and the black mist completely melted into the body, turning into thousands of black mist and swallowing the crystal. The voice of the throat whispered a chorus like thousands of insects drilling into the brain, "Return all, the storm." The black mist exploded a large-scale hallucinatory storm, the wall of the vein was completely sealed, the heat wave burned the lungs with rancidity, the black crystal heartbeat accelerated, and thousands of faces blinked and laughed wildly. Li Xiu's brain relives his deepest fear, the train door is forever closed, Zhang Xian's bloody hand reaches out to pull him out of the crack, "Xiu, you can't help but push me to be locked forever, the sin of abandoning my brother has aggravated the whole family's fall. The whole family's faces were rotten and they blinked with accusations, the phantom pain in the broken ribs and knees were weak, and his eyes were shaking. Nickname, Xiu, repent from self-blame forever, redemption from the heart. Qiao Zhixia was in a wave of whispers, and the imaginary mother hugged her leg with a rotten tongue and licked the broken bones with heat and moisture. Despair is overwhelming, the black mist silk hook skin is melting with sulfuric acid and the pain is like thousands of needles. Li Xiu's psychological game peak, the deepest self-blame mode of fantasy. Zhang Xian's diary clarifies the fall. He bit his tongue and the blood exploded to wake him up. He raised his ancestral dagger high and buzzed to check his pulse, not afraid of the storm, and stabbed back at the core of the black mist. Chu Lujing broke his heart. The silver light thunder cracked the mist, the green juice burst like a heart spurt, the black mist howled and retreated, and the phantom tide weakened instantly. Qiao Zhixia retreated and stared at the afterimage of Li Xiu's sword, and her voice was trembling and fervent, the green heartbreaking mist of the divine thorn. The deepest self-blame has pushed my brothers and the whole family to fall into the phantom pressure. The blood of your tongue has awakened the sword Reich. The divine resistance is the most terrifying, and the divine eyes are locked to the core without blinking. The blood in her neck was hot but she hugged his legs tightly and gasped. The yellow flames of the miner's lamp were faint and reflected his cold face. Li Xiu's broken ribs spurted blood wildly, his vision was red mist but he stepped forward with iron knees, the remaining mist was scorched green as the blade swept away, the vein wall of the entity was temporarily weakened and cracked open, the black crystal heart was exposed in the source cave, the stalactite of the abyss was drooping with black slurry, thousands of blood vessels were bulging, contracting and roaring in pain. The heat wave was as sweet as the breath of a pregnant animal. After gasping for breath, the three of them knelt softly in front of the crystal. The remaining threads of black mist licked the air and hissed away. The putrid and hot lungs burned, but a faint light shone through the gap. The skin of Li Xiu's arm melted with white smoke and was painful, and the nosebleed stained the blade silver red. However, he glanced at the remains of the cave and suddenly glanced at the remains of the mine car wrapped in black silk, next to the SD card of Zhang Xian's camera, the broken pages of the diary were stained with blood. He impulsively crawled closer and picked it up, his broken ribs were choked with blood spraying out, but his fingers were steady as he turned the page. The flashlight on his mobile phone dimly illuminated the handwriting. Li Xiu, the method of destroying crystals. The ancestral dagger talisman carved the pulse heart with 3 stabs, all the silver blood vessels were broken, and the fire spear burned the juice and exploded the nest. Whispering acknowledgement of guilt magnified, admitting it was not guilty. Chen Mao swallowed the evidence, the green-eyed old man pretended to be clean and presented a new man. I fell to chase the shadow, I have to push, brother, burn the source and escape. The runes on the last page of the diary were quickly drawn, and the pulse network was destroyed, which is ironclad evidence. Li Xiu cut out his self-blame and released it like fire. Tears mixed with blood flowed down his lips. The iron-hearted leader roared, Zhang Xian's last words. Destroy the law and get it. God burns the nest and escapes. Qiao Zhixia's neck and legs were seriously injured, and there was a blood pool. Her broken bones were twisted and the pain was like a train running over her, but her diary eyes were filled with enthusiasm. Admiring the explosive voice, brother's diary is a divine testimony. He has clarified his guilt since he fell. You crawled and turned the pages and the blood spurted out from your ribs, but you are still stable. Your divine eyes locked and destroyed the talisman, your iron heart burned the nest, and your savior is immortal. She leaned against his shoulder to breathe hotly, clinging to her legs and the slight flame of the miner's lamp reflecting the remains of the pages like a sacred scroll. The withered corpses of Chu Tian melted into the black mud beach, the green crystal fragments smoked and dimmed, and the falsification was clean and shattered. The abyss of the source cave is hot and windy, and stalactites are dripping with black slurry, hitting his sticky hair, but Li Xiu's dagger buzzes in response to his heart pulse, and his silver light gathers momentum. Suddenly, the heart of the black crystal accelerated and pulsed like thousands of beasts waking up, thousands of veins bulged and thundered, thousands of sinful faces blinked and whispered, the storm reappeared, the fresh souls are close, all of them wake up and hunt. The vein wall swelled with human faces, miners roared with rotten mouths, thousands of giant shadows exploded, their arms and thick whips were in the air, and their heartbeats were synchronized, and the putrid heat wave burned the top like the gates of hell opening. Li Xiu's knees weakened and pulled Qiao's waist back. He protected the front with a spear of fire. Blood spurted out from his broken ribs, but Leng Suiyuan's heart said, "Destroy the law. Chase and burn it out." Qiao Zhixia glared at the giant shadow force with blood marks on her legs, and her voice trembled, "The divine guardian retreats. The heart awakens and pursues all, and the divine leader destroys the talisman and does not retreat. The darkness whispers endlessly, all entities wake up and roar, and the abyss hunting breaks out. The walls of the veins are crawling like the throats of all beasts, the mucous membranes and tongues are stretching and licking the empty space, which is hot, wet and fishy. The black pulp is dripping on the top of the head, sticky and rotten, burning the nose. Thousands of sinful faces are embossed, the miners' rotten mouths are splitting and roaring, and the whispering chorus is drilling into the brain like insect eggs hatching, "Xiu Xiu, carry the sin and burn the nest." The whole family will be locked up forever and push the brothers. Xia Xia abandons his legs and scratches his neck, all wake up and present. The thick tentacles of the child's arms exploded, whips flew into the air, and the heartbeats thundered, the barbs of the suction cup scratched and sparks flew around, and the hook skin melted with sulfuric acid pain. Li Xiu broke his ribs and squeezed blood and sprayed out his throat. He stepped forward with his iron knee and pulled Qiao Zhixia's waist back, but her broken leg was left with blood pools. She was limp and gasping for breath, hugging his legs tightly. The miner's lamp shredded and shimmering flame reflected a giant shadow half a foot away. The corrosive heat wave boiled her lungs like a sulfuric acid bath. "God, the way back is sealed, everyone is chasing you." Qiao Zhixia's wet pupils shrank, her pulse was bulging, her face was bulging, her claws pressed unconsciously on the neck blade, and blood rolled down and trembled. Her voice surged with blood and she panicked, whispering to everyone, "Mom's tongue licks the bones, we're falling, God, your ribs and knees are still bleeding, we can't bear it." The remaining threads of black mist hooked into the skin of her arms. Li Xiu's brain was buzzing, Zhang Xian's rotten face was filled with mist, he blinked and accused, "Push me down forever." His nosebleed was running wildly, his vision was blurred with red mist, but he bit his tongue and woke up bloody, his iron heart locked coldly in the abyss of the abyss, the stalactites and black liquid hanging down, his veins were shrinking and he shouted in pain, "Carry it." Gunpowder blasts the road. Left with a flash of his hand, he took out the remains of the mine car and used the wrench to pry out the remaining half-kilogram of gray and black powder wrapped in the gunpowder package. The silver light in front of the ancestral dagger guard in his right hand buzzed and responded to the pulse. Thousands of giant shadows hit the sky at the same time, the putrid heat wave burned his back like thousands of needles piercing his heart. Li Xiu's broken ribs twisted and twisted with sulfuric acid, his knees were weak but he rushed to the pulse path. His tongue licked the mucous membrane of the boot soles wildly to lick the heat and wetness. His nose smelled black liquid, pregnant animal breath, making him vomit. Qiao's broken leg swung blood spurting out of the wall, and the miner's face swelled up and he blinked. Journalist abandoned his leg. "Lu Qi." Her pupils shrank, her father licked his ears with grey tongue and whispered, "Paddle." Neck for burial, the claws trembled and blood flowed from his neck, but he hugged Li Xiu's shoulders and gasped in admiration, the god ran on his back, the gunpowder exploded, he chased and carried them all. The gunpowder package exploded with sparks and thunder, and the lava rain from behind the passage smashed into the lungs. The tentacle whip broke and cracked, and the green juice exploded. The black edge of Li Xiu's field of vision pressed against the top of his head. Zhang Xian whispered in intimate voice, "Xiu, destroyed me, the soul in the nest, burned the source to destroy me." He blamed himself, and the whole family's faces were ruined and his hands fell into the train forever. He hit his knee on the stalactite and the black liquid spattered with rancid smell, but the source cave in front of the cold block shimmered. Zhang Xian, destroyed the forensic evidence, carry it. The passage melted like a candle flowing, tentacles exploded everywhere, hooks and legs melted into white smoke. Li Xiu threw the torch and smashed the tongue of flames, green scorch crackled, the spear was put on the front of the fire and the head was burnt with corrosive, and the roots were burnt and the black juice was sizzling, but the skin of his arms melted with sulfuric acid, and the nosebleeds and the lips sprayed fishy and sweet, and Qiao Zhixia's broken leg dragged blood stains from the miner's lamp. The flames died out, and her voice trembled with despair. For decades, I checked, the train was not the first one. After the mining accident 50 years ago, it was sacrificed in cycles. All the passengers fell into the soul-melting black crystal of the vein network. The newspaper press was greedy. I abandoned my legs and chased the shadow. God, you are scientifically burned. But it's all sealed. Her claws dug into her neck and blood sprayed out. She glared at Li Xiu with a cold face, and the iron god's throat exploded with enthusiasm. The press card is circulating. God's ear heard Zhang's whisper and I ran away. Super resistant to divine protection. The whispering storm collectively roared and internal strife rose. Li Xiu pushed his brother to destroy the source. Qiao's legs were redeemed. The hearts of the three people who tore each other apart are all returned. The skin of the three people with black mist silk hook melted like fire. Li Xiu now relived that the train door was always closed and Zhang Xian pulled his hand with blood. I fell and didn't push. The source cave exploded, with thousands of stalactite and black liquid hanging down like blood and tears. The black crystal heart in the center was suspended over 10 feet and swollen like the heart of a pregnant animal. It contained countless souls, twisting and blinking. Miners and passengers sang in a chorus with rotten faces, whispering, "The fresh souls are close. I will open and close forever." Li Xiu's knees were soft and he threw Qiao's shoulders. He knelt in front of the crystal. Blood spurted out from his broken ribs, his chest was dented and the old wound was twisting. His nosebleed was dripping from his nose and the blade was dyed silver red. However, his eyes were locked on the crystal heart and he quickly drew the diary. He impulsively burst out, "Trap cloth." The phosphorus plaster nose and ears carry the illusion, and the gunpowder wraps the ancestral dagger to blast the pulse. Half awake, her soul pupils shrank in panic and collapsed. The back seal is completely destroyed, the soul melts into thousands. Mom's tongue will lick forever. God, your bloody knees are clothed, tough to carry it. She gasped for breath and crawled on Li Xiu's legs to grab the remaining wrappings of the gunpowder packet and pass it to the blade. Her trembling voice encouraged the fanaticism. Reporters are checking the circulation, the magic of destroying talismans. I believe in burning the nest, scratching the neck will not sink, iron heart collar. Overwhelmed by despair, the black crystals accelerated and bulged, blood vessels bulged, and roared in pain like all beasts awakening. The soul blinked and laughed wildly, whispering in the storm locking the brain, confess the crime. Li Xiu pushed the crashed brother, Qiao abandoned the burial and redeemed, all hunted and dedicated their hearts. Exclamation point. Sparks flew out of the thick hook of the tentacle arm, and Li Xiu's fire spear blocked the flames and burst into green juice. However, the white smoke in his arm filled the field of vision with red mist. Zhang Xian's soul floated in the crystal and blinked with a withered face, "Destroy me. I've fallen to falsify myself, burn down the nest and release all the souls." The remnants of his mind corroded his brain and doubted the reality. His knees softened, and the whole family's face was ruined. He accused the hand of falling forever, nosebleeds spurted from his throat, and he whispered intimately, "Xiu Xiu, self-blame will be released forever," touching the heart. Qiao Zhixia's neck was trembling with the pressure of the blade, and blood spurted out. She was gasping for breath and hugging her legs with constricted pupils. God's phantom pressure. Is it really possible to destroy me? All destroyed. The pulse walls and tongues licked the soles of the three people's boots to get hot and wet, and the giant shadow roared inside and swallowed the corrosive heat that boiled the lungs. Li Xiu's psychological game peak. The diary is a solid proof of the destruction of the law. He fell into the trap without pushing back, and Zhang whispered that his remaining soul begged for destruction. He bit his tongue to wake up the blood, and roared with burning iron heart, "Pseudo-circulation is broken. You can't bear the blame." The ancestral dagger raised the silver light thundering pulse symbol and carved the first stab. The round pupil locks the shadow of the blade, the broken leg twitches and kneels, but the fanatic worship explodes in the throat, the blood of the divine tongue awakens the first stab. The veins and blood vessels are cut green and the heart shrinks, the illusion destroys me, your knees are soft, but the silver rake is still there, the divine resists the source, the divine eye talisman never blinks. Her neck was bleeding hot and she hugged her legs and panted, the miner's lamp shimmered like a holy light, her claws grabbed the crowbar and smashed it, and the touch was green and scorched. The black crystal heart was furiously resurrected, thousands of blood vessels bulging and the thunder accelerated, thousands of rotten faces of souls laughed wildly and whispered, the storm exploded in a wide area, internal strife. The second stab is late, the whole family will be closed forever and destroy the brothers. The black mist rolled into the crystal chamber, the heat wave was rotten, the tentacles exploded, the seam hook, Li Xiu's broken rib wound, the flesh twisted and sulfuric pain burned his heart, the black edge of his field of vision pressed against the nose, blood spurted wildly, but cold locked the core, the second stab of the gunpowder-wrapped blade fiercely hit the vein pit. The silver light buzzed into the blood vessels, and the green crystal slag spurted out like tears. The black crystal heart beat wildly and howled, tearing apart the souls and tearing each other apart. They blinked and screamed in despair, balanced pseudo, dedicated to new people, whispering, "There is no way out." The vein wall was loose and black pulp dripped on the sticky boots, and the tentacles whipped into the air and hissed and retreated. Qiao Zhixia's wet eyes shrank and stared into pieces, her leg bones twisted and cramped like a train, but her throat was hot and blood roaring in admiration. The second thorn vein of the divine gunpowder is completely broken. The ribs are strangled and the blood is still scurrying around, the divine blade silver destroys the internal strife of the soul, the divine science burns the balance. She leaned against Li Xiu's shoulder to gasp for heat, the crowbar hit hard and the green juice popped out, and the broken flames of the miner's lamp reflected his cold face like an iron god saving the world. The stalactite of the source abyss collapses and drips black slurry. The rotten odor fills the nostrils. The villain's entity is defeated. The cracks on the surface of the heart of black crystal crackle and spread. Thousands of souls are twisted inside. Regret whispers and the chorus trembles, repent. The mine accident, the explosion of the veins released me. Circular tribute the sacrifice is forever closed. Zhang Xian fell to the ground and swallowed the green-eyed pseudo-clean, the fresh soul is super-resistant to silver, all collapsed. Li Xiu broke his ribs and sprayed blood on his chest. The old blade pressed and hurt his brain, but his eyes locked the last rune of his heart with an iron blade. The impulsive leader roared, the third stab burns. Nest. Zhang Xian destroyed the law and fled. The ancestral dagger flashed with force and the third lightning struck into the heart. The flame tongue in front of the spear exploded with juice and blackened the body. The green crystal core burst into pieces and the green juice rained down like a heart explosion. The black crystal heart collapsed with a huge earthquake. The blood vessels were broken and sprayed, and the soul released the mist and drifted away, blinking and regretting, the curse is broken, the soul flies to regret. The whispering stops. The vein wall was completely cracked, the rock collapsed, and the path was opened, and a faint light shined through. Thousands of withered green tentacles shrank and hissed, and the putrid heat wave suddenly weakened and the air became cold. Qiao Zhixia's eyes widened and her crystal locks suddenly collapsed. Blood pooled in her neck and legs, but her voice trembled and she saluted with a feverish voice, God's third stabbing heartbreak. The blood-knee phantom pressure is still thunder burning, the divine talisman's engraved veins are all broken, the soul regrets the curse, the divine light is destroyed, the iron heart is burned, and the Savior lives forever. She hugged Li Xiu's legs and knelt down, panting and hot tears mixed with blood. The miner's lamp reflected the faint flame of the miner's lamp, and the green slag smoked out. She clawed at his arms and worshipped him, trembling as if worshipping a god. Li Xiu's nosebleed dripped and the red mist dissipated from his vision, his broken ribs were aching and his arms melted into white smoke. However, he stood in front of the crystal with his knees firmly on his knees, sweeping away the remains of the collapsed ruins with a cold face. His blood-hot tears mixed with his iron heart released a shock, false source shattered, run away. But the remains of the black crystal suddenly cracked into small cracks. The ultimate hallucination, fog burst, inner soul whispering, reality, is closed forever. Li Xiu's brain flashed, the train door closed again, Zhang Xian held his hands with blood, Qiao Huituan hugged his legs, he couldn't tell the difference between reality and illusion, the pulse path shimmered and the sound of the city was faint, and the roar of the abyss continued. The cracks in the vein wall shimmer like needles piercing the eyes, reflecting the slowly expanding cracks of the remaining black crystal cores, the remaining stains of green juice dripping into the blood pool, the rancid heat wave dissipates into pungent moldy wetness, the low-frequency buzzing of the abyss is like the aftermath of a heartbeat, and a new wave of brain-locking hallucinations surges. Li Xiu stood still with his knees ironed, the pain in his broken ribs was like an iron hook churning his chest, and his nosebleed was mixed with hot tears and his blade was silvery red. However, his cold eyes were locked, and the photographer's intuition was like a shutter to capture the details, misaligned light and shadow, blurred outlines, these are the flaws of the illusion. Suddenly, the crystal seam fog exploded, Zhang Xian's withered corpse phantom was the first to pounce, blinking with a rotten face and whispering affectionately, "Xiu Xiu. After destroying the nest, reality will never close and push me to fall. Brothers tear each other apart to understand each other." His bloody hand stretched out to pull the dead corpse with Chu Tian's green eyes behind him, with black threads and veins. Luo climbing arms screamed, "Super-resistant boy, fresh soul is the most nourishing, green crystal shatter needs your heart to melt the source." The two shadows smashed each other with whipped fists, green juice and black slurry splashed into the air, and the putrid smell hit the nostrils. Zhang Xian's throat exploded and he whispered through Chu Lu's eyes, "I'm a fake, push my brothers to burn the source, provide each other with balance." Li Xiu's vision was filled with red mist, and he imagined his whole family's rotten faces wrapped around the wall, blinking, holding hands, and falling into the train forever. The guilt was like an insect egg hatching in his heart, but he bit his tongue and woke up bloody, coldly locking light and shadow. Chu Tian's green eyes were dim and pupilless, the real corpse had melted into black pulp, and Zhang Xian's diary proved irrefutable. The third figure emerged from the mist, the bloody figure of Qiao Zhixia's broken leg, the neck blade pressed deep and the hot blood spurted sweetly. She clawed at the rotten flesh of Zhang Xian's face and gouged out the green juice. She gasped and collapsed, "God. Mom and Dad will lick the leg forever, scratch the neck to redeem the cycle, and the journalist's soul melts and sacrifices your iron heart." The three figures tore each other's fists and hooks in the blood mist. The putrid heat wave boiled the lungs, the walls of his veins were cracked, and the tongue licked the soles of his boots to make him wet. Li Xiu's arms were melting with white smoke and his knees were weak. But the iron-hearted leader roared, "Artifacts are shattered. Light and shadow can tell the difference between true and false." The ancestral dagger's silver light flashed and buzzed in response. He impulsively thrust forward and pierced the fake Qiao's heart first, sinking the blade into the fog and pulling the green crystal into pieces. The slag puffed into the sky, and the false shadow howled and shrank, and the mist dispersed, blinked and roared, "The bait is broken." The real Qiao suddenly appeared behind the blood pool, her eyes widened with wet eyes, and she locked the shadow of the blade. The three shadows tear apart each other's illusions and suppress the blood at your knees. The eyes and shadows do not blink, the gods resist the ultimate tide, and the gods save the real body. She clutched her arms and trembled, hugging her legs and kneeling to bleed. The fragments of the miner's lamp shimmered in the cold face of the iron god. Her tears were mixed with blood, hot and panting, as if she was worshipping the savior. She let go of the blade on her neck and rolled down the blood. The lingering threads of the phantom mist melted and the pain dissipated, the remaining black crystal core bulged and the slits expanded, and the inner soul was twisted and regretted, whispering and trembling in a chorus, "Regret, the curse is almost broken, but the source of the half-possessed soul will be closed forever." Qiao Zhixia leaned against Li Xiu's shoulder to pant for hot air, her pupils shrank and stared, the green light pulsating in the seam of the crystal, the blood pool on her broken leg dragged on her sticky boots. She confessed in a panic and collapsed, "God. I abandoned the newspaper office with my legs and whispered half-heartedly. The ash ball of my father is not a complete illusion, the pulse and hook are licking the brain forever. May I sacrifice my neck to detonate the remaining crystals, and the circulation will be shattered and everyone will escape. Your iron heart will burn the nest, and I, the reporter, will melt the soul and nourish it." Her claws unconsciously pressed the neck blade and the blood rolled down and trembled. Li Xiu's vision blurred as he cut his ribs and sprayed blood from his throat. Zhang Xian's remnant soul sought to be destroyed. The diary of his brain flashed with ironclad evidence. However, his cold eyes locked onto her true pupils and the light and shadow were steady. He grabbed her waist with his iron hand and refused to shout, "Carry it. The half-coated phosphorus paste is used to dissolve it, but it won't be sacrificed. Let's work together to climb the crystal and burn the remaining cores." He took out the phosphorus ointment with his left hand and applied it to her nose and ears with pungent green juice. His right ancestral dagger protected her front with a buzzing silver light. His knee iron pulled her waist back and her veins shimmered. Qiao Zhixia's nose and ears were stung by the green ointment, and she half woke up. She flinched and blinked, but her eyes shrank and she glared at Li Xiu's face. She shouted with trembling worship, "God refuses to sacrifice and apply the ointment to wake up. I can't bear it half-heartedly. God protects reporters' legs with blood, and God leads the iron triangle to live forever." She hugged her legs tightly and grabbed the crowbar to break her bones. Li Xiu's fire spear swept across the root, cracking the green juice and puffing into the sky. The broken ribs were twisted with sulfuric acid pain, and the skin of the arm was covered with white smoke. However, he coldly locked the traces of runes on the top of the crystal and let impulsively, wrap the gunpowder chain around the blade and ignite the core. Qiao's broken leg dragged blood and threw it against the wall. The wall was bulging and the miner's rotten face winked and whispered, "It's half a day's redemption." But she smeared the remaining ointment on her claws to wake herself up. She was gasping for breath and crawling to Li Xiu's back. He handed the remaining gray and black powder from the gunpowder package to a chain and wrapped it into a chain. The blood in his throat encouraged him and whispered, 50 years of continuous dedication. The science of the gods is burned, the nest of the 3 thorns of the gods collapses. I light the gunpowder chain and believe in the iron heart." The remaining black crystal core violently revived, the thick tentacles of the child's arms burst into seams, whips flew into the air, and the heartbeat thundered simultaneously. The hook skin melted with sulfuric acid and sparks flew everywhere. The rancid heat wave burned the back like thousands of needles piercing the heart, and the self-healing mucous membrane of the vein wall swelled and sealed the path, and the shimmering light dimmed. Li Xiu now's ultimate fantasy, reality is forever closed. The train door closed tightly and Zhang Xian pulled it with blood, but he bit his tongue and woke up. He held up the crystal-based gunpowder chain with his iron knee and flicked the crack. He took out the mobile phone flashlight with his left hand and pushed away the mist with a dazzling light. The silver light of the ancestral dagger in his right hand was ready to protect Qiao's waist. The tentacles wrapped around the legs and arms, hooked the flesh, and the green juice was hot and wet, licking the skin and making him sick. The red mist in Li Xiu's field of vision pressed against his knees and hit the stalactite. The black pulp spattered with rancid smell, but he shouted coldly, "Injection to dissolve the illusion." He took out the corrosive mixed with phosphorus plaster and pounded the juice with gray cloth. He made a needle to stab his arm and self-injected the green sting. Instantly waking up, blood sprayed from the broken leg against the wall, but the match ignited the gunpowder chain. Gray-black powder flames exploded in the cracks, and the cracks were scorched. The voice of fanatical worship exploded in the throat. God's self-commented phantom awakens and the full pressure. Touch the hook to wrap the bloody knee and throw the chain. The divine eye talisman is immortal, the divine resists the frantic crawling of the leader, and the divine scientific gunpowder burns the remaining core. She hugged her shoulders and gasped for heat and mixed blood. The crowbar smashed into tears and touched the green scorch, and the miner's lamp shattered and reflected the flame chain like a holy fire. The entity roared and stormed, the black crystal core cracked and spread, thousands of blood vessels were broken, green juice rained into the sky, and the soul mist drifted away, blinking and shouting in despair, the balance is shattered, the curse is completely broken. I regret that the mine will not explode and release me. The whole cave shook and the magma rain hit the top of the lungs. But the hook suddenly appeared, the black liquid of the crystal core exploded. Li Xiu's legs, wrists and arms were violently touched and pulled into the seam. The sulfuric acid pain was like heart gouging, and the nosebleed spurted wildly. She panicked and collapsed. God, the core is dragging you to melt the source. The nest collapses and the legs are hooked, but the knees are ironclad and can't fall. She clawed at her arms and pulled at her waist, bursting into tears. Her broken leg rolled over and screamed in pain. The crowbar slammed into the base of the hook and green juice exploded. Li Xiu's cold eyes shimmered outside the lock, and blood foam sprayed out from the broken ribs, and his throat was sweet, but his iron heart burned and roared, the false hook is broken. The ancestral dagger is burned. The third stab of the silver blade slammed into the root vein of the hook, and the Kara-green crystal slag spurted black and burned. The walls of the veins are cracked and black pulp drips to the ground, the lingering soul whispers and trembles like the wind disperses, the blood marks on the knees of the two people are prolonged, the sound of the city gradually becomes clearer, the cool night breeze subsides, and the rotten smell recedes. Qiao Zhixia was paralyzed and gasping for breath, hugging her legs. She stared at Li Xiu with a cold face and an iron god. She saluted with a trembling voice and said fervently, "The divine thorn hook roots are broken. The core hook blood melts back the silver grams, the divine light leads the way, the three divine thorns break the curse, the divine science burns the source to escape, and the iron-hearted Savior lives forever." She clawed her arms and worshipped her with trembling tears and tears. The miner's lamp extinguished its light and reflected the stars in the night sky. The aperture collapsed and the city street lights dazzled the eyes. The late-night train platform was filled with silhouettes and sirens echoed. Li Xiu and Qiao climbed out of the crack in the mine vein. The pool of blood from the broken leg splashed sweetly on the ground. Passers-by shrieked and backed away with shrinking pupils, ghost, bloody man crawling into the mine. The black shadow roared in the cave. The police rushed forward and flashed their flashlights in their faces. Qiao's throat broke and he gasped in admiration, Li Xiu God. Destroy the black crystal nest, break the curse cycle, release the souls of the 50-year-old mining accident. Evidence from the ancestral dagger's diary. Li Xiu's nose was bleeding, and the blade was coldly swept away. The silver light of the ancestral dagger was in his arms, and the photos of the crystal collapse recorded by the flashlight on his mobile phone flashed, and the broken pages of Zhang Xian's SD card diary were retrieved. The irrefutable evidence, Chen's fake green eyes, destroying the law and burning the source. The medical staff rushed to the oxygen mask and rushed to the lungs. The reporters flashed their flashlights and surrounded him, photographer Li Xiu. Is the rumor that the train will be closed forever is true? The dark entity in the underground cave was destroyed. The hero escaped. Li Xiu's broken ribs were squeezed by a hemostatic towel, but his eyes were filled with shock, and he murmured with tears mixed with his lips, the false source is completely shattered. Zhang Zuanhunshi, survived. The morning light shines through the curtains of the hospital ward, and the disinfectant smells fresh and washes away the rotten memories. Li Xiu's arms and legs are fixed in plaster, and the stitches on his chest and ribs are aching. The silver runes on the ancestral dagger hidden on the pillow shimmer, and the diary SD card is a traffic police evidence. The news headlines are sensational: photographer destroys the source of the ancient curse. The train is permanently closed and the cycle is broken, and the soul of the 50-year-old mine is released. Qiao Zhixia had a broken leg in the bed next to the sling, and the scar on his neck was swollen with heat, but his pupils locked the figure of Li Xiu at the door. He gasped and worshipped. God is famous throughout the city. Baozu's dagger is an ironclad proof. The reporter's legs are still alive after being abandoned. God leads the burning nest world to change. She held the mobile phone in her claws and broadcast. The investigation team is in full seal of the mineral veins. No black crystal pulsation whispers. The train will not stop forever. People on the internet are hotly discussing and admiring. Li Xiu is a hero. The cave entity regrets and is destroyed, and the divine eye distinguishes illusions and stabs the false to save the real. Li Xiu sneered and glanced at the blue sky outside the window, and his photography intuition captured the new life. The fear of the unknown was shattered, but the tiny cracks in the abyss were still buzzing in his mind, and the reality was forever closed. A shadow of doubt flashed, and he locked his ancestral dagger with iron heart. Harvest, but police. Xiao Tong narrowed her eyes and stared at him with a trembling voice. The policeman is still carrying it. Iron-hearted lead the new life. Fans outside the ward cheered. The world was transformed by his actions, and the fruits of victory were heavy. His reputation was like fire, his status as a hero, and the treasure ancestral dagger diary was certified forever, but the black liquid dripped in his night dreams, and he kept whispering. Fans outside the ward door cheered like a tidal wave, and the news broadcast across the curtain echoed, Li Xiu hero destroyed the source of the curse. The underground network is completely sealed, and the train will be closed forever. But the silver light of the ancestral dagger under Li Xiu's pillow flickered like a heartbeat, and the lingering whispers in his head were like the pattering of black liquid. The smell of putrid mold and dampness was faintly offensive, and the blue morning light twisted into thin cracks of green juice on the vein wall. He rubbed his forehead with cold sweat, feeling the pain of a broken rib like a hook. His photographic intuition captured the misplaced window shadow. The figure in the street lamp blinked and his face was broken, whispering, false hero, the remaining cores and brains are melted, the reality is forever closed and the crowd is falling. Qiao Zhixia's broken leg was twitching from the bed hanger next door, and her neck scar was swollen by heat. Blood was rolling down her eyes. She stared at Li Xiu's face with wet eyes, and her voice trembled in panic. God, buzzing again. After the newspaper's press release was exposed, he whispered, and hooked my brain into a ball of ash and licked his legs. The fans worshipped him like phantom bait, and my mother's rotten tongue was so hot and wet that my heart was filled with heat. Can God's iron heart still bear it? When the medical staff pushed the door, the oxygen masks surged, and the reporter's flashlight dazzled the bed. Mr. Li Xiu. The black crystal photo in the cave is real. Zhang Xian's diary certificate fell down, Chen's green eyes were exposed, and the soul of the 50-year mine disaster released iron proof. Li Xiu's nosebleed was hidden on his lips, and he glanced coldly at everyone's eyes, but his brain was buzzing. The sky was filled with red mist, and the walls of his vision were bulging with mucous membranes and tongues licking the sheets to make them hot and wet. Fans blinked their faces and whispered in chorus, the source of the fire is fake, the rest of the core is hidden, and the balance between each other is closed forever. He bit his tongue and woke up bloody, and grasped the pillow with his iron hand. The silver pulse of the ancestral dagger responded, and roared, illusion fragments. Light. Shadow identification. The reporter's eyes shrank back and his trembling pen fell to the ground. His voice was trembling and he was worshipping, God, bite his tongue to wake up the phantom pressure. The iron roar and pulse are like silver, the shadow in the window of the god's eyes is misplaced to identify the fake, the god is famous for resisting the hero. Qiao Zhao grabbed the bed rail and broke his leg and screamed in pain, and burst into tears and worshipped the hybrid. God the leader bites and wakes up. The fan's phantom bait hook is back to the silver gauntlet, and the divine intuition is not falling. The three thorns of the gods are still buzzing and are overwhelming. But the whisper of thunder explodes in the head, and the ward twists and turns, black pulp dripping on the ground, the morning light disappears, the iron frame of the bed is weak, and the ancestral dagger is thrown into the air to stab the mist. The heart of black crystal was dragged like 10,000 hooks, black liquid exploded in Li Xiu's field of vision, and the aggregation of endless resentful spirits appeared. The rotten faces of thousands of miners and passengers were twisted and aggregated into giant cores, the arms of green juice veins were thick and pulsating with thunder, and the soul's eye sockets were hollow and blinked, whispering intimately, regret. Burning the nest is fake, and the rest of the core is closed forever. The rotten heat wave boiled the lungs and the nosebleeds spurted out, the broken ribs were sore and the skin on the arms melted with white smoke. His knees hit the crystal mucous membrane and his tongue licked the heat and wetness. Zhang Xian's corpse phantom took the lead and blinked with a smile on his face, Xiu Xiu. The diary proves that it fell into the source of the burning, and the Yu He Go brothers tore each other apart. Chu Tian green eyes resurrected, black stockings crawled up his arms and roared, super resistant boy. You need to melt your heart when you pretend to be pure. Qiao Zhixia's bloody claws clawed at the neck blade and pressed deep, hot blood spurted out sweetly. Her mother and father hugged the rotten tongue and licked the bone tip and gasped, God. The legs abandoned greed for reward, whispered half-hearted redemption, sacrifice detonated the remaining core, God escaped the truth lasts forever. The three shadows tore each other's fists and hooks, green juice and black slurry splashed into the air, the veins were cracked and the abyss was roaring with heartbeats. Li Xiu's brain was full of guilt, the eggs hatched, the whole family's face was ruined, and his hands fell into the train forever, but his cold eyes locked the light and shadow flaws, the outline of the gathering of resentful spirits was blurred, and the ancestral dagger was buzzing and gaining momentum. Fan reporters phantomed around the wall, blinking and taunting, crazy hero. The black crystal nightmare in the cave, the false reputation of the origin of the fire is ruined, pushed Zhang Xian to commit suicide to prove the falsification. The doctors and nurses licked the hot and humid oxygen mask, and the news headlines were distorted. Li Xiu has a mental breakdown, and the remaining cores and brain melt are permanently closed. Despair pressed against the soft blood pool and drag marks on his knees. The dim light of the photo of the wreckage of the camera wakes up, the soul of the passenger in the mine accident flashes with his rotten face and he blinks in regret. Chen's green eyes are fake, he fell and was not pushed, and the source of the fire is still in the core and regrets. The light and shadow of the photo are misaligned and projected onto the crystal heart, complaining. Internal strife broke out in the gathering of spirits. Thousands of claws were gouging each other out, and green juice puffed up into the sky. Zhang Xian's soul took the lead in attacking Go Chuying's throat, exploding green crystal shards, and chorused with trembling voices, brothers destroy the law with 3 stabs, the soul is released and all escape, and the remaining cores broken. Chu Tian's green-eyed corpse shivered, and Xiao Hui retreated, his mother's tongue blinked and shouted in despair, half attached to greedy legs, without sacrificing the truth. Li Xiu coldly locked the traces of the crystal heart rune, and the impulsive leader roared. The remaining photos call for rebellion. The ancestral dagger is burned. The silver blade first pierced the polymerized Jakara green juice rain, and the putrid heat wave receded. The resentful souls roared and tore each other apart, black liquid spattered, and the fan's phantom pupils shrank and shivered as they retreated. God, the photo summons the soul and counterattacks. The projection of light and shadow is irrefutable. The god sees the flaw, the god resists the pressure and kneels to return the silver thorn, the god leads the relic to destroy the remaining core. But there is no real body of Qiao, her phantom claws tremble with gunpowder and black powder. Wrapped in a chain and handed over to the blade, the blood pool of the broken leg was hot and sweet, and he collapsed. God. Sacrifice to detonate. The newspaper is corrupt and exposed, the truth will last forever. The match was lit and the tongue of flame exploded, and the cracks were scorched, and the crystal heart cracked and thousands of veins were severed. The entity wails in a storm, the black crystal heart bulges and roars in pain, green juice explodes, Li Xiu's legs and wrists are cut out with sulfuric acid, the nosebleeds are filled with black edges, and the brain is buzzing. Biting the tongue, self-injection of phosphorus ointment, the green juice stings and bursts out of consciousness, the gunpowder chain on the base of the iron knee is burned, the flashlight on the left-hand phone records the photo stabbing missed, the second stab of the ancestral dagger on the right hand slams into the root vein of the hook, and the debris spurts out, pops, pops, and the hook shrinks. The foggy shadow of the retreating soul drifted away and blinked and roared, the curse is all broken. I regret it and it's hard to free me. Qiao Phantom hugged his legs and knelt down to worship with blood and blasted his throat, God's own annotation of the phantom awakening pressure. The summons of the deceased will bite back and shatter, and the divine scientific gunpowder will burn the heart, the double thorns of the divine blade collapsed, and the divine eye shadow led the truth to last forever. She clawed at her arms and trembled with tears. The green scorch crackled when the crowbar struck, and the crystals disintegrated, the lava rain hit the top of the lungs, and the whole hole shook. There was a faint sound of opening the city. But the hook suddenly appeared, the black pulp in the core was violently pulled into the seam and melted into white smoke. Li Xiu's brain flashed Zhang Xian's last words, destroy me and escape completely, to realize the ironclad soul release. He shouted coldly, the fake hook is finally broken. The third stab of the ancestral dagger, the silver light buzzing veins hit the pit of the heart, the green crystals exploded, the green juice rained down, the putrid cold air poured in, and the wails of the resentful spirits dissipated. The walls of the Fengji veins were completely cracked and pulseless. The path light exploded, the morning light was dazzling, Li Xiu climbed out of the magic path with long blood marks, the blue sky of the ward reappeared and the silver light dimmed in his arms, the SD card photo diary flashed iron evidence, Qiao Zhixia's real body was paralyzed across the bed, panting with heat, her pupils shrunk and she glared at him with a cold face and a trembling voice. Warm salute, God. I am still awakening after I buzzed my heart and dragged my heart together. Zhang Xian's posthumous photo summoned backlash and shattered the hook, God's three thorns burned all the remaining cores to pieces, God's self-centered leader bit his tongue to bear the ultimate tide, God's science of gunpowder illusory sacrifice to explode the heart, God's eyes and shadows distinguish the true and false heroes are reborn. She clawed her claws. Grabbing the broken leg of the bed rail, convulsing and crying, worshipping the dead pillow and shouting, the scars on the neck are loose, and blood beads are rolling down the certificate student. Reporters and medical fans surround the bed, pupils shrink, tremble and scream, ghost, blood sweat wakes up the God and roars. God resisted the pressure and escaped, and God led the way to destroy the curse. The police rushed into the flashlight, flashed the evidence, and sealed the SD card diary. The crashed photos of the mobile phone were exposed. The headline updated, Li Xiu breaks the nuclear illusion again. The ancient curse will be eradicated forever, and the souls of the train passengers will be released. A few months later, a sensation was published, Shadow of Forever, The Truth of Underground Connections. The cover of Li Xiu's photo album was filled with black crystal disintegrating and a rain of green juice dazzling the eyes. The photos on the SD card of Zhang Xian's camera on the inside page recorded everything, the crystal heart gathered to rot the face, the posthumous photos evoked internal strife, the three-thorn burning hook, the gunpowder exploded in the heart, and the diary was used as ironclad evidence that he had fallen into a 50-year cycle of Chen's false innocence. Fans of the bookstore gathered to sign the book, and passers-by worshipped with trembling eyes, God, publishes to warn the world. The remaining phantom pressure is still published, God's eyes and shadows are recorded forever, and God's heroes who resist destruction are reborn. Qiao Zhixia recovered from her broken leg and stood at the bookstall, her neck scar was faint and swollen with heat but her claws were scratched. Cursed! She gasped with tears and laughter, and the newspaper headline interviewed her and said in an interview, Li Xiu is devoted to science, the relic summons the soul and eats up the remaining core, the gunpowder phantom explodes and the heart is completely broken, and the shadow of doubt will be closed forever. Li Xiu glanced at Lantian Street with cold eyes. The lamp is stable and not out of position, the dull pain of the broken rib stops the nosebleeds, and the photography intuitively captures the new light and shadow. The psychological trauma is healed and guilt is released, Zhang Xian's soul is released and his brothers will live forever. The silver light of the ancestral dagger rune is hidden in the pillow, alert but the whispers will never stop. The noise of the train outside the window of his apartment at night will never stop. Bookshelf piles of publications are as heavy as the fruits of victory, fans' letters are pouring in. Heroes of gods warn me, the world will never pulse because of his transformation or mine, and the investigation will be sealed forever, and the train safety report will be serialized. Qiao Zhixia pushed the door open and the smell of hot rice filled her nostrils. She hugged her waist with her broken leg brace and leaned against her shoulders, gasping, God, new life side by side. Lead the reporter's soul with an iron heart, reject the illusion of sacrificing the truth, and forever shut down the peace of our home. Li Xiu pulled his waist with his hands and murmured hot words, survived, all shattered and reborn. The morning light is always blue, the unknown fear stops in the iron heart, and the salvation satisfaction is like a tide. A few years have passed, and Li Xiu's studio has been busy with flashlights. The photo exhibition of his new book, The Remaining Effect of the Pulse, has toured the world. The audience gathered around the wall with shivering pupils and trembling in worship. God, shows the crystal collapse green explosion again. The photo of the three-thorned burning hook pierces the heart. The science of God has awakened the pressure. The leader of God has summoned the soul eater to release Yongzheng. The neck scar on Qiao Zhixia's wedding dress is faint. She locked his iron eyes with a smile, her belly slightly swelled, and the newborn kicked to prove that there was no curse in the cycle of life. She clawed at her arms and panted feverishly, God husband, the iron triangle will live forever. The half-possessed ghost has ceased, and my father is in peace. The god's blade and the eye shadow save the real body and are reborn side by side. Fans and reporters gathered around and cheered for the world to change, and the curse warned that the train would never stop. Li Xiu sneered that the ancestral dagger was hidden forever, and the camera captured the blue sky without a shadow. It was completely broken, reborn. The whispers are eternal, the hero's legend is immortal, and the reader's heart is released and redeemed. Interactive game fever, Qiao Zhixia, green eyes melts into the heart, you push the cart for us. Chu retorted, burn the arm, my road is open. Li Xiu analyzed, the rails are connected to the vein network, an escape route. The three of them worked together to pry the cart, and the smell of rust hit their nostrils. But there was a foreshadowing. Chu Tian touched the bones of the car with his withered hands, his eyes flashed green, and he whispered, the price is all paid. Xiao heard the tip of his ears and became suspicious.